Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I've been doing this for 8 years now, but I never liked the northern leg of the Glacier highway. My name is Braddock Lamasney. People call me Brad. I'm 35 years old and I haul machine parts from Whitehorse to Watson Lake. This route isn't our usual run, but in winter the work thins out and you take what you can get. It was early November. Daylight died around 3 in the afternoon. The thermometer showed minus 24 degrees and it was still dropping. My tractor's heater had been cutting out on and off for the past 2 weeks. The radiator hose was replaced last month, but I still didn't trust it. Before leaving Whitehorse, I checked the chains, bought extra diesel, looked over the oil levels. Everything was where it should be. I left the terminal at 3. The trailer was full, but not heavy. Good cargo. If I made Watson Lake by morning, I could load up in the evening and head back. 2 days of work. Simple enough. The highway looked empty. Fresh snow had fallen, but the road was clear. Straight route. I turned on the radio, but couldn't get a station. Normal for up here. I kept the CB open. Maybe another driver was out there. We could talk. The first half hour was quiet. Trees stood straight on both sides. Pine and spruce. Their branches bent under the snow. Sometimes a deer crossed, sometimes nothing. Just the engine sound and the soft hiss of tires on snow. At 4 o'clock the snow started. Light at first. Flakes dancing on the windshield. I turned on the wipers. Didn't slow down. Visibility was good. At 4:30 I heard a voice on the CB. "Any convoy on this channel?" I picked up the mic. "This is Brad, coming from Whitehorse, solo. Where are you?" "Behind you, 5 minutes you can follow if you want." "Where are you heading?" "South Watson." "Good. Same route." If there was a convoy, I'd feel better. Moving together made sense up here. "All right, slowing down. I'll wait for you." I dropped speed. Checked the mirrors. Hard to see anything in the dark, but after a few minutes I caught lights in the distance. 2 sets. Maybe 3. They were moving steady, not fast, just keeping pace. The snow was getting thicker now. The kind that sticks to everything and makes the road feel smaller. The lights grew closer. I could make out the first truck. Big rig, looked like a Peterbilt. The one behind it was harder to see through the snow. The CB crackled again. "Got eyes on you. We'll take lead you follow." "Copy that. I'm right behind you." The lead truck pulled ahead, and I fell in behind it. The second truck stayed close to my rear. 3 of us now. A small convoy. It felt safer. Out here, when the weather turns, having someone ahead of you to break the wind and test the ice makes all the difference. I settled in and kept my distance. Not too close, not too far. Just enough to see the taillights through the snow. The highway curved gently. Nothing dramatic, just the slow bends that follow the terrain. The trees pressed in on both sides, dark and thick. The snow kept falling. My wipers struggled to keep up. I cranked the defroster higher. The temperature was dropping. Minus 27 now. We'd been moving for maybe 20 minutes when I noticed something. The lead truck's taillights looked strange. They were dim, almost yellow instead of red. Could have been the snow. Could have been old bulbs. But they looked off. I squinted through the windshield trying to focus. The second truck behind me was still there. I could see the glow of its headlights in my side mirror. The CB was quiet now. No chatter. That was normal enough. Not everyone liked to talk. Some drivers just wanted to get where they were going. But after a while the silence started to feel heavy. I keyed the mic. "Lead truck, this is Brad. What's your handle?" "Static." Then nothing. I tried again. Lead truck, you copy? Copy, stay close. The voice was faint, broken up. But I heard it. What's your name? No answer, just static. I looked at my odometer. We'd covered about 15 miles since they caught up to me. The road should have been straightening out soon, opening up into a wider section before the next valley. But the curves kept coming, tighter now. I didn't remember this part of the route being so winding. I glanced at the GPS. The screen showed the highway as a straight line ahead. But we were turning. I could feel it in the steering, see it in the way the lead truck's lights swayed left and then right. The GPS had to be wrong. Maybe the signal was weak. Maybe the cold was messing with it. I'd heard of that happening. Electronics don't always work right when it gets this cold. The lead truck slowed. I slowed with it. The snow was coming down harder now, thick and sideways. The wind had picked up. I could feel the trailer shudder every time a gust hit it. The road beneath me felt rough, uneven, not plowed recently. Maybe not at all. That's when I saw the sign. It was half buried in snow, tilted to the side like it had been hit by a plow years ago. I couldn't read all of it, but I caught 2 words as I passed. Road closed. I hit the brakes. Not hard, just enough to slow down fast. The tires grabbed and the trailer swayed a little. I keyed the mic. Lead truck, we just passed a closed road sign, you see that? Static. Lead truck, respond. Nothing. The taillights ahead kept moving. The truck behind me stayed close. I checked the mirrors. Still there, still glowing. My chest tightened. Something was wrong. I'd driven this highway a dozen times and I'd never seen a closed road sign on this section. Never. The main highway didn't close unless there was a massive avalanche or a bridge collapse, and even then they set up detours with lights and barricades. This wasn't that. This was just a sign, half buried and forgotten. I slowed down more. The lead truck kept going. The distance between us grew. I could still see the taillights, but they were fainter now, almost swallowed by the snow. I thought about stopping, just pulling over and waiting until daylight. But the truck behind me was still there. If I stopped, it would have to stop too, or go around. Either way, it felt wrong. I kept driving, slowly now. The road got narrower. The trees closed in. The GPS was still showing the main highway, but what I was seeing didn't match. This felt like a side road, an old access route, maybe a logging road. But why would the convoy take this? The CB crackled. Don't turn back. I froze. My hand hovered over the mic. The voice was different this time, deeper, slower. And it wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning. Who is this? I said. Don't turn back. Keep moving. I looked in the mirror. The truck behind me was closer now. Too close. I could see the outline of the grille. Big chrome bumper, high beams off, but the running lights were bright. I couldn't see the driver. The cab was dark. Ahead, the lead truck's taillights disappeared around a curve. I followed. The road bent sharply to the left and then opened up into a clearing. And that's when I saw it. An old checkpoint. The kind they used to have back in the day when this was a mining road. A small wooden shack with a rusted gate arm hanging crooked across the road. No lights, no movement. Just the shack and the gate and the snow piling up on everything. The lead truck didn't stop. It rolled right past the gate, the arm scraping against the top of the trailer with a metallic screech that I could hear even through the wind. The truck kept going, taillights fading into the darkness beyond. I stopped. I put the rig in neutral and sat there, engine idling. The truck behind me stopped too, close, maybe 10 feet. I stared at the checkpoint. The shack's door was open, swinging slightly in the wind. Inside, it was just black. No light, no sign of anyone. The CB crackled again. Don't turn back. I grabbed the mic. My hand was shaking. Where the hell are we going? No answer, just static. And then, faintly, underneath the noise, I heard something else. A voice, whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but it didn't sound right. It sounded wrong, like someone talking backwards, or underwater. I shifted into reverse. The truck behind me didn't move. I backed up slowly, watching the mirrors. The truck stayed where it was. I kept reversing, turning the wheel, trying to angle back toward the way we came. The road was narrow. I had to do a 3-point turn. The whole time, the truck behind me just sat there. Headlights on. Engine running. Waiting, I finally got turned around. I didn't look back. I just drove. Fast as I dared on the snow. The road stretched ahead, winding and dark. I kept waiting for the truck to follow me, kept checking the mirrors. But it didn't. It just stayed there. And the lead truck was gone, vanished into the trees. It took me almost 40 minutes to find the main highway again. When I finally saw the yellow line down the center and the reflective markers on the side, I almost cried. I pulled over at the first wide spot and sat there with the engine running, hands gripping the wheel. My heart was pounding. My shirt was soaked with sweat despite the cold. I checked the GPS. It showed me exactly where I was. On the Glacier highway, right where I should be. Like I'd never left. But I knew I had. I'd followed those trucks onto a closed road. I'd seen the checkpoint. I'd heard the voice. I picked up the CB mic, keyed it. Anyone out there? Anyone on this channel? Static, just static. I tried again. This is Brad, heading south on Glacier. Anyone copy? Nothing. I turned off the CB. My hands were still shaking. I needed coffee. I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. I checked my phone. No signal. Of course not. I was in the middle of nowhere. I sat there for another 10 minutes, just breathing. The snow kept falling. The wind kept blowing. And somewhere out there, on a road that wasn't supposed to exist, 2 trucks were still driving. Going somewhere I didn't want to follow. I put the rig in gear and started moving again. South. Toward Watson Lake. Toward light and people and warmth. I didn't look back. I made it to a roadhouse just before midnight. It was one of those places that sits alone on the highway like a forgotten outpost. The sign out front said, Northern Lights Rest Stop, but half the letters were dark. There were 3 other trucks in the lot, and a couple of pickups parked near the diner entrance. Yellow light spilled out of the windows. It looked warm, safe. I parked near the back, away from the others. I needed space, needed to think. I sat in the cab for a few minutes, listening to the engine tick as it cooled down. My hands had finally stopped shaking, but my chest still felt tight. I kept replaying it in my head. The convoy, the closed road, the checkpoint, the voice on the CB. Don't turn back. I climbed down from the cab and locked the doors. The cold hit me hard. -30 now, maybe colder with the wind. I pulled my hood up and walked fast toward the diner. The snow crunched under my boots. Everything was white and black and silent except for the wind. Inside, the warmth was almost painful. My face burned as the blood came back. I stomped my boots on the mat and unzipped my jacket. The place was small. A counter with stools, a few booths along the window, a kitchen in the back. It smelled like coffee and grease and old wood. 2 drivers sat at the counter, not talking. An older guy sat in a booth with a cup of coffee and a newspaper. A woman stood behind the counter, wiping it down with a rag. She looked up when I walked in. "Rough night?" she said. I nodded. "Yeah." "Coffee?" "Please." I sat at the counter, 2 stools away from the other drivers. She poured me a cup and set it down. The steam rose up and I wrapped my hands around it. The heat felt good. "You heading south?" she asked. "Watson Lake," I said. Or trying to. She nodded. Long haul this time of year. Yeah. She studied me for a second. You look like you've seen something. I didn't answer right away. I took a sip of coffee. It was strong and bitter and exactly what I needed. I glanced at the other drivers. They weren't paying attention. I looked back at the woman. She was maybe 50, maybe older. Hard to tell. She had the kind of face that came from years of working nights and dealing with cold and tired men. You know anything about convoys on the Glacier? I asked. She tilted her head. Convoys? Yeah, 2 trucks. Caught up to me about 40 miles back. I followed them for a bit. They took me off the main highway, onto some old road. The woman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She set the coffee pot down. You followed them? Yeah, they said they were heading to Watson, but the road didn't feel right. And the GPS kept showing me on the highway, but I wasn't. I was on some side route. There was a checkpoint, old one. Looked abandoned. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she leaned in, lowering her voice. How'd you get back? Turned around. Took me a while to find the highway again. She nodded slowly. You're lucky. Lucky? Yeah. She glanced toward the window, like she was checking to see if anyone was outside. Then she looked back at me. I've heard stories. Drivers following convoys that don't exist. They end up on roads that aren't on any map. Some of them don't come back. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, don't come back? I mean, they disappear. Search crews find their rigs sometimes. Empty. No sign of the driver, no tracks leading away, just the truck sitting there on some old mining road or logging route that hasn't been used in decades. I stared at her. You're serious. Dead serious. I took another sip of coffee. My hand was shaking again. What about the trucks, the ones in the convoy? Who are they? She shrugged. No one knows. Some people say they're ghosts, old drivers who died on the road and can't let go. Others say it's something worse, something that uses the trucks to lure people in. That's insane. Maybe. She picked up the rag and started wiping the counter again. But I've been working here for 23 years. I've heard the same story from at least a dozen drivers. Same details. Convoy appears out of nowhere, takes them off the highway. And if they're smart enough to turn back, they make it. If they're not, well, you heard what I said. One of the drivers at the counter turned his head. He was a big guy, maybe 60, with a gray beard and a faded ball cap. She's not lying, he said. Happened to a buddy of mine, 5 years ago. He was hauling timber from Prince George. Said he got caught in a convoy, followed them for miles. When he finally realized something was wrong, he tried to turn around, but the road was gone, just trees. He had to bushwhack his way back to the highway. Tore up his rig doing it. I looked at him. Did he report it? To who? The cops? They'd think he was drunk or high. No one believes it until it happens to them. The other driver, a younger guy with a shaved head, nodded. I've heard it too. My uncle drove up here in the 90s. He said he saw a convoy once, 3 trucks. They passed him on a straight stretch and then just vanished, like they drove into thin air. The woman behind the counter set the rag down. There's something out there. I don't know what it is, but it's been here longer than any of us, and it doesn't like to let go. I finished my coffee. My mind was racing. I thought about the voice on the CB. Don't turn back. What would have happened if I'd kept driving? Would I have ended up like the others? Disappeared? Left my rig on some forgotten road? You should eat something, the woman said. You look pale. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You need the energy. She went into the kitchen and came back a few minutes later with a plate of eggs and toast. I didn't argue. I ate slowly, trying to process everything. The other drivers went back to their coffee. The older guy left first, tossing a few bills on the counter and nodding at me as he walked out. The younger guy followed a few minutes later. It was just me and the woman now. She refilled my cup and leaned against the counter. "What did you see out there?" she asked. "Really?" I told her everything. The convoy, the closed road sign, the checkpoint, the voice on the CB, the truck that followed me and then stopped. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You heard the voice?" she said finally. "Yeah." "What did it sound like?" I thought about it. "Wrong. Like it was, I don't know. Backwards? Or too far away?" She nodded. "That's what they all say." "Who's they?" "The ones who make it back." I pushed the empty plate away. "I need to get out of here. Keep moving." "You should wait until daylight." "I can't. I've got a delivery." "That delivery won't matter if you're dead." I stood up. "I'll be fine. I'll stay on the main highway, keep the CB off." She reached under the counter and pulled out a piece of paper. She wrote something on it and handed it to me. It was a phone number. "That's me," she said. "If you see them again, call. Don't try to turn around on your own. Just call. I'll talk you through it." I looked at the number. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't want to hear about another empty truck on the side of the road." I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. "Thanks. What's your name?" she asked. "Braddock, Brad. I'm Fiona Murchison. You be careful out there, Brad." I nodded. "I will." I paid for the food and walked back out into the cold. The wind had died down a little, but the snow was still falling. I climbed into the cab and started the engine. The heater struggled to push out warm air. I sat there for a minute, looking at the roadhouse in the rearview mirror. Fiona was standing in the window, watching me. I pulled out of the lot and back onto the highway. The road stretched ahead, dark and empty. My headlights cut through the snow, but everything beyond was just black. I kept the CB off. I didn't want to hear anything, didn't want to risk it. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was behind me. Not close, just there, watching. Waiting, I checked the mirrors every few seconds. Nothing, just darkness. The miles crawled by. I passed the spot where I'd turned around earlier. I didn't look at it, kept my eyes on the road. The GPS showed me exactly where I was, on the highway, going south. Everything was normal, except it didn't feel normal. It felt like the road was too quiet, too empty, like I was the only person left in the world. I drove for another hour before I saw lights ahead, a small gas station with a single pump. The sign said last chance fuel. I needed to fill up anyway. I pulled in and parked near the pump. The place looked old. The concrete was cracked and the building had that weathered look that comes from decades of wind and snow. But the lights were on. That was enough. I climbed down and started pumping. The fuel was slow, the nozzle cold in my hand. I looked around. No other vehicles. No one inside that I could see. Just me and the hum of the pump. That's when I noticed the truck. It was parked on the far side of the lot, near the tree line. Big rig. I couldn't see the make or model in the dark, but the shape was familiar. Too familiar. I stopped pumping and stared at it. The taillights were off, no engine running, just sitting there. I finished filling up and hung the nozzle. I walked toward the building, keeping my eyes on the truck. As I got closer, I could see it better. The trailer had no markings. The tractor looked old, rusted in places. And the taillights, even though they were off, had that same dim, yellowish look I'd seen earlier. I stopped walking. My heart was pounding. I turned and went into the station. A bell rang above the door. Inside was a small counter with a register. Shelves with snacks and oil bottles. No one was there. I looked around. Hello? No answer. I walked up to the counter. There was a clipboard with receipts clipped to it. I flipped through them. Most were dated within the past few days, but one caught my eye. It was dated 3 weeks ago. The handwriting was messy, almost illegible, but I could make out a few words. Convoy, don't follow. My skin went cold. I dropped the clipboard and backed away. I needed to pay, but there was no one here. I left cash on the counter, more than enough, and walked out. The truck was still there. Hadn't moved. I didn't go near it. I got in my rig and pulled out fast, tires spinning a little in the snow. I drove, didn't stop, didn't slow down. The highway was empty, no convoys, no lights, just me and the road and the snow. But I kept hearing it. Faint, in the back of my mind. That voice from the CB. Don't turn back. I reached the pass just before dawn. The sky was starting to lighten, turning from black to deep blue. The snow had stopped, but the wind was fierce. It howled through the trees and shook the cab. I could feel the trailer sway every time a gust hit. The road climbed steadily, winding up the side of the mountain. This was the worst part of the route. Narrow switchbacks, steep drops, and ice everywhere. Even in good conditions, it was dangerous. In winter, it was a nightmare. I downshifted and kept my speed low. The chains on my tires clanked against the asphalt. The sound was steady, rhythmic. It was the only thing keeping me grounded. That and the fact that the sky was getting lighter. Daylight meant safety, or at least I hoped it did. The GPS showed I was about halfway through the pass. Another 10 miles and I'd be on the downhill side. Then it was just a straight shot to Watson Lake. I could make it. I just had to focus. That's when I saw the flare. It was on the right side of the road, maybe a quarter-mile ahead. A bright red glow in the snow. Someone had set it up, a warning, or a call for help. I slowed down even more. As I got closer, I saw the truck. It was jackknifed across the road, blocking both lanes. The trailer had slid off the shoulder and was hanging over the edge. The tractor was on its side, wheels in the air. Steam rose from the engine. It looked fresh, recent. Maybe an hour old, maybe less. I stopped about 50 feet away and put on my hazards. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The wind hit me like a wall. I pulled my hood tight and walked toward the wreck. My boots crunched in the snow. I could hear the wind screaming through the trees and the creak of metal as the trailer shifted slightly. "Hello?" I shouted. "Anyone in there?" No answer. I got closer. The tractor's cab was smashed in on the driver's side. The windshield was shattered. I shined my light inside. Empty. No driver. No blood. Just broken glass and twisted metal. I walked around to the passenger side. The door was open, hanging by one hinge. I looked inside again. Still nothing. Whoever had been driving was gone. But where? There were no footprints leading away. No tracks in the snow. Just the wreck and the wind and me. I stepped back and looked at the trailer. It was unmarked. No company logos. No placards. Just plain white, rusted in places. Same as the trucks I'd seen in the convoy. My chest tightened. This didn't feel right. I pulled out my phone. Still no signal. I walked back to my rig and grabbed the CB. I turned it on reluctantly. I didn't want to hear that voice again, but I needed to call for help. Someone had to know about this wreck. Someone had to come clear the road. I keyed the mic. "This is Brad on the Glacier. I've got a jackknifed truck blocking the pass. No driver. Repeat, no driver on scene. Anyone copy?" Static. I waited, tried again. "Anyone on this channel? I need emergency services at the pass. Over." The static crackled, and then, faintly, I heard it. Don't turn back. I dropped the mic. My hands were shaking. I stared at the CB. The voice was the same. That wrong, backwards sound. I grabbed the mic again. Who the hell is this? Keep moving. Don't stop. There's a wreck here. I can't get through. Yes, you can. I looked at the jackknifed truck. It was blocking both lanes. There was no way around it. The shoulder was too narrow on the left and the trailer was hanging over the drop on the right. I'd have to wait for a tow truck, or turn back. Don't turn back. I got out again and walked closer to the wreck. I studied it. The trailer was balanced precariously on the edge. If I could push it, maybe it would fall. Clear the road. It was insane, dangerous. But so was staying here. I looked around for something to use as leverage. There was a broken piece of guardrail a few feet away. I grabbed it. Heavy. Rusted. But solid. I carried it over to the trailer and wedged it under the back end. I pushed. The trailer groaned, shifted. I pushed harder. The wind picked up. I could hear something else now. Not the wind. Something underneath it. A low hum, like an engine. I stopped and listened. It was coming from the trees, down the slope. I shined my flashlight into the darkness. Nothing. Just trees and snow. The hum got louder, closer. I dropped the guardrail and backed away. Something was moving down there. I could see branches shaking, hear snow falling. Whatever it was big. I ran back to my rig, climbed in, locked the doors. The hum was louder now. It surrounded me. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. Everywhere and nowhere. I started the engine and threw it into reverse. I had to get out of here. Had to turn around, find another route. But as I started backing up, I saw movement in the mirror. A figure. Standing on the road behind me, tall, wearing dark clothes. Just standing there, not moving. I hit the brakes. The figure didn't move, didn't wave, didn't react. Just stood there in the middle of the road, blocking my path. I honked the horn, long and loud. The figure didn't flinch. I honked again. Nothing. The hum was deafening now. My ears were ringing. I looked back at the jackknifed truck. The trailer was shaking, rocking back and forth like something was pushing it from below. I made a decision. I shifted into first and drove forward, straight at the wreck. I aimed for the gap between the tractor and the edge of the road. It was tight, maybe too tight, but I didn't have a choice. The rig lurched forward. The chains bit into the ice. I kept the wheel steady. The gap got closer. I could see the twisted metal, hear the creak of the trailer. I was almost there. The trailer fell. It happened so fast I barely registered it. 1 second it was hanging over the edge. The next it was gone, just dropped. I heard the crash as it hit the rocks below. The sound echoed up the mountain. The tractor shifted, sliding further off the road. The gap opened up. I gunned it. The rig shot forward. I felt the side mirror clip the tractor as I passed. Heard the scrape of metal on metal, but I was through. I kept driving, didn't look back, didn't slow down. The hum faded. The wind returned, and the figure was gone. I drove for another mile before I pulled over. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I sat there with the engine running, trying to catch my breath. My shirt was soaked. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I looked in the mirror. The road behind me was empty. No wreck. No figure. Nothing. Like it had never happened. But I knew it had. I'd seen it, felt it. The trailer falling, the hum. The figure. It was real. I grabbed the CB, turned it off. I didn't want to hear that voice again, didn't want to risk it. I'd make it to Watson Lake on my own. No help, no convoy, just me and the road. The sun was starting to rise now. The sky was turning pink and orange. The light felt good. Safe. I put the rig in gear and started driving again. The pass leveled out. The road straightened. I could see the valley below. Watson Lake was down there, waiting. I just had to keep moving. Don't turn back. Don't stop. Just keep moving. I made it to Watson Lake just after 9 in the morning. The town looked normal, small, quiet. A few buildings clustered around the highway, a gas station, a diner, a motel. I pulled into the freight yard and parked near the loading dock. My hands were still shaking. I sat in the cab for a few minutes, staring at the dashboard. I'd made it. I was here. Alive. I climbed down and walked into the office. A guy behind the counter looked up. Middle-aged, bald. He had a clipboard in his hand. "You Brad?" "Yeah. You're late. Had some delays." He nodded. "Weather?" "Yeah, something like that." He handed me a form to sign. I scribbled my name and handed it back. He looked at it and then at me. "You all right? You look like hell." "Just tired." "Well, get some rest. We'll have you loaded by tonight. You can head back tomorrow." I nodded. "Thanks." I walked back outside. The sun was bright. Too bright. It hurt my eyes. I pulled my hood up and walked across the street to the diner. Inside, it was warm and crowded. People eating breakfast, talking, laughing, normal. I sat at the counter and ordered coffee. The waitress brought it over and smiled. "Rough trip?" "Yeah." "Where you coming from?" "White Horse." "That's a long haul this time of year." "Yeah." She poured herself a cup and leaned against the counter. "You hear about the wreck on the pass?" My stomach dropped. "What wreck?" "Big rig, jackknifed yesterday afternoon. Tow truck had to pull it out. Driver was fine, said he hit ice. Yesterday afternoon?" "Yeah, around 3. Why?" I stared at her. I didn't see it. "You came through the pass this morning, right?" "Yeah." "Then you wouldn't have. They cleared it last night." "But I did see it. I saw it this morning. Before dawn. It was fresh, steam rising from the engine. No driver. I wanted to tell her, but I didn't. She wouldn't believe me. No one would." I finished my coffee and paid. I walked back to the rig and climbed in. I sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of it. The convoy, the roadhouse, the gas station, the wreck. None of it added up. But it had happened. I knew it had. I pulled the piece of paper out of my pocket. The one Fiona had given me. The phone number. I stared at it. Then I pulled out my phone. I had a signal now. I dialed. It rang 3 times. Then a voice answered. "Northern Lights." "Fiona?" "Yeah. Who's this?" "It's Brad. I was there last night. You gave me your number." "Brad, you made it." "Yeah, I made it. Did you see them again?" I thought about the wreck, the figure, the hum. "Yeah." She was quiet for a moment. "But you kept moving." "Yeah." "Good, that's good. Fiona, what is it? What's out there?" She sighed. "I don't know. No one does. Some people think it's ghosts. Old drivers who died on the road. Others think it's something older. Something that was here before the road. Before us. What do you think?" "I think it doesn't matter what it is. All that matters is that you don't follow it, and you don't turn back." "But I did turn back, on the side road. I reversed and found the highway again." "Then you're lucky. Most people don't get that chance." "What happens to them?" "They disappear. Or they end up like the wrecks. Empty. No driver. No explanation." I looked at the freight yard. The other trucks parked there, normal, safe. "I don't know if I can do this again. Drive that route. Then don't. Find another route. Take a different job. But if you do drive it, Remember what I told you. Stay on the highway, keep the CB off, and if you see lights, don't follow them. Okay? You take care, Brad. You too. I hung up. I sat there for a while, thinking. I thought about quitting, finding a different route, a safer job. But I'd been doing this for 8 years. It was all I knew, and I couldn't let fear win. Not like this. I made a decision. I'd drive back tomorrow. Same route. But I'd be ready. I'd stay alert, keep the CB off. And if I saw lights, I wouldn't follow them. I'd keep moving. Don't turn back. That night, I stayed at the motel. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the convoy, the wreck, the figure standing on the road. I heard the voice. Don't turn back. In the morning, I loaded up and headed north. The sun was bright, the road was clear. Everything looked normal, but I kept my guard up, kept checking the mirrors, kept listening. I passed the spot where the wreck had been. Nothing, just empty road. I kept driving. I reached the roadhouse around noon. I pulled in and parked. Fiona was inside. She looked up when I walked in. You're going back, she said. Yeah. Be careful. I will. I ordered food and sat at the counter. The same 2 drivers from before were there. The older guy nodded at me. You made it through. Yeah. That's good. Not everyone does. I ate quickly and left. I didn't want to stay too long. Didn't want to think about it too much. I just wanted to get home. The drive back was uneventful. No convoys, no lights, no voices. Just the road and the snow and me. I made it to Whitehorse by nightfall. I parked at the terminal and climbed down. My legs were stiff. My back ached. But I was home. Safe. I walked into the office. The dispatcher looked up. How was the run? Fine. Good. Got another one for you next week. Same route. I nodded. Okay. I walked out to my truck and stood there for a minute. The terminal was quiet. The other rigs were parked in neat rows. Everything was normal. But I knew the truth. I knew what was out there. On the road, in the dark, waiting. And I knew I'd see it again. Not because I wanted to, but because that's how it works. Once you've seen it, it doesn't let go. It watches. It waits. And when you're out there alone, in the dark, in the cold, it comes for you. I climbed into my rig and locked the doors. I sat there for a while, staring at the empty road ahead. The CB was off. I'd keep it that way. And if I saw lights, I wouldn't follow them. I'd keep moving, don't turn back. Because that's the rule. The only rule that matters. Don't turn back. My name is Heath Giroux, and I've been hauling freight through the Yukon for 12 years. People ask me why I stay up here when the work is brutal and the winters are worse. The truth is, I don't know anymore. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's because I'm too old to start over somewhere warm. I'm 42 now, and this road is all I know. It was mid-December, the kind of cold that makes your teeth ache and your breath freeze in your lungs. I was running a load of drilling equipment from Dawson City to a mining camp near the Alaska border. The route took me through some of the most isolated country in North America. No towns, no services, just frozen wilderness and a road that barely qualified as one. I left Dawson at first light, which this time of year meant around 10 in the morning. The sun hung low on the horizon, pale and weak. It would be dark again by 3. I had maybe 5 hours of daylight to cover 200 miles. The first half of the route was decent. Plowed, graveled. The second half was ice road. Literal ice, a pathway carved across frozen lakes and rivers. One wrong move and you'd go through. They'd find your rig in the spring when the ice melted. Maybe. The heater in my cab worked, but barely. I had to keep a sleeping bag wrapped around my legs to stop them from going numb. The defroster struggled to keep the windshield clear. Ice built up in the corners no matter how high I cranked it. I wore 2 pairs of gloves, one thin pair so I could feel the wheel, one thick pair over those for when I had to step outside. The load was heavy, 8,000 pounds of pipe and drilling bits. The trailer groaned under the weight. I kept my speed low, 20 miles an hour on the good sections, 10 on the ice. Any faster and you risked losing control. The road had no guardrails, no markers, just white on white on white. I passed a snowplow around noon. Big orange machine pushing a wall of snow off to the side. The driver gave me a wave. I waved back. It was good to see another human. Up here, that meant something. It meant you weren't completely alone. The radio played static. I'd given up on music hours ago. The CB was quiet too. No one else on the road. Just me and the cold and the endless white. Around 1:30, I started looking for the fuel station. It was marked on my map. An old supply depot that had been converted into a service stop decades ago. Most drivers used it as a checkpoint. A place to warm up, refuel, and check their rig before heading onto the ice road section. I'd been there twice before, both times in summer. The place was basic but functional. A pump, a small building with a wood stove, a mechanic's bay. The owner was an old guy who didn't talk much but knew his way around a diesel engine. I should have reached it by now. According to my GPS, I was less than a mile away, but I didn't see it. Just trees and snow and the narrow road cutting through. I slowed down and checked the map again. The coordinates were right, it should be here. Then I saw the sign, half buried in a snowdrift. Faded letters. Junction fuel, 500 feet. I exhaled. Good. I was low on diesel and the cold was eating through it faster than usual. I needed to fill up before hitting the ice road. I rolled forward slowly. The road curved to the right and opened up into a clearing. And there it was. The station looked exactly like I remembered. A single pump under a metal awning. A small building with a tin roof. Smoke rising from the chimney. Lights on inside. I felt a wave of relief. I pulled up to the pump and cut the engine. The silence was immediate and absolute. No wind, no birds. Just the tick of cooling metal and my own breathing. I climbed down. The cold hit me like a punch. -40 at least. Maybe colder. My breath came out in thick clouds. I pulled my hood up and walked to the pump. It was old, manual, the kind you had to crank by hand. But it worked. I grabbed the nozzle and started filling the tank. While the fuel flowed, I looked around. The place was exactly as I remembered. Same layout, same buildings. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. The snow was piled high against the walls. Too high. Like it hadn't been cleared in weeks. But the lights were on. Smoke was coming from the chimney. Someone was here. The pump clicked, full. I hung the nozzle and walked toward the building. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Warmth hit me immediately. A wood stove in the corner glowed red. The room was small. A counter, a few shelves with supplies, a coffee maker on a hot plate. And behind the counter a woman. She looked up when I entered. Young, maybe mid-20s. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a heavy flannel shirt and jeans. Her face was pale, tired, but she smiled. "Cold one today," she said. "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded strange, too loud in the small space. "You need fuel?" "Already got it, just need to pay." She nodded and pulled out a receipt book, one of those old carbon copy ones. She wrote slowly, carefully, How much? Filled the tank. Should be about 60 gallons. She did the math by hand and wrote down a number. Then she tore off the receipt and handed it to me. I looked at it. The handwriting was neat. The numbers were clear. But something caught my eye. The date. December 14th, 2013. I stared at it. That couldn't be right. It was 2023, not 2013. I looked up at her. This date is wrong. She glanced at the receipt. What? The date. It says 2013. She looked at it again. Her expression didn't change. Oh, sorry. Old receipt book. Must have grabbed the wrong one. She took it back and pulled out another book. Wrote a new receipt. Handed it to me. This one had the right date. December 14th, 2023. I folded it and put it in my pocket. You want coffee? She asked. I hesitated. Something about this didn't feel right, but I was cold and tired, and coffee sounded good. Yeah, thanks. She poured me a cup from the pot on the hot plate. I wrapped my hands around it. The heat felt good. I took a sip. It was strong, bitter, exactly what I needed. You heading to the camps? She asked. Yeah, mining camp near the border. Long drive. Yeah. She leaned against the counter. You come through here before? Couple times. In the summer. Oh. She looked at me for a long moment. What's your name? Heath. I'm Ivy Ketterling. Nice to meet you. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was something hollow about it, like she was going through the motions. You should be careful out there. Ice road's tricky this time of year. I know. Had a truck go through last week. Driver didn't make it. I looked at her. Seriously? Yeah. They pulled the rig out, but they never found him. Current probably carried him under the ice. My chest tightened. Where did it happen? About 10 miles east, near the Narrows. I knew that spot, a section where the road crossed a river. The ice was always thinner there. You had to move fast. Don't stop, don't slow down, just keep moving and hope the ice held. Thanks for the warning, I said. Sure. I finished the coffee and set the cup down. What do I owe you? For the coffee? Nothing. For the fuel, you already paid. I nodded. All right, thanks. I walked toward the door. As I reached for the handle, she spoke again. Heath. I turned. Yeah? If you see lights on the ice, don't follow them. I stared at her. What? Just don't. Keep your eyes on the road. Don't look at the lights. What lights? She didn't answer, just looked at me with those hollow eyes. I wanted to ask more, but something told me not to. I nodded and walked out. The cold hit me again. I walked back to the rig and climbed in. Started the engine. As I pulled away from the station, I looked in the mirror. Ivy was standing in the doorway, watching me. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there. I turned my attention back to the road. The trees closed in on both sides. The light was already fading. I had maybe an hour before full dark. I needed to make good time, but I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. The truck that went through, the driver they never found, and the lights. What lights? I drove for another 20 minutes before the road opened up onto the ice. The transition was sudden. One moment I was on solid ground. The next, I was on a frozen lake. The surface was white and smooth. No tracks, no tire marks. Just ice stretching out in every direction. I slowed to a crawl. This was the part I hated. You couldn't see how thick the ice was. You just had to trust it. Trust that the cold had frozen it deep enough to hold the weight. Trust that there were no weak spots, no cracks, No open water. I kept the rig moving, slow and steady. The ice creaked under the weight. I could hear it. A low groan that seemed to come from everywhere at once. My hands gripped the wheel. My eyes scanned ahead, looking for anything. A change in color, a shadow, anything that might indicate thin ice. The sun was gone now. The sky was a deep purple fading to black. My headlights cut through the darkness. The ice reflected the light back at me, bright and blinding. I squinted and kept driving. That's when I saw them. Lights, off to my left, about 100 yards away. They were faint, flickering, like candles or lanterns. I slowed down and stared. What the hell were lights doing out here? There was nothing, no buildings, no camps, just ice and darkness. I thought about what Ivy had said. Don't follow them. But I wasn't following them, I was just looking. That was different, right? The lights moved, slowly, drifting across the ice. I watched them. They seemed to be pacing me, moving at the same speed, staying parallel. I told myself it was a reflection, headlights from another truck somewhere, or the aurora, but the aurora didn't move like that, and there were no other trucks. I forced myself to look away, focus on the road. Keep moving, don't stop. The ice groaned again, louder this time. I felt the rig shift slightly. My heart jumped. I accelerated just a little, not too much, just enough to keep momentum. The lights were closer now. I could see them in my peripheral vision. They'd moved. How? I hadn't looked away for more than a few seconds, but they were definitely closer, maybe 50 yards now. I gripped the wheel tighter. My breath came faster. I wanted to floor it. Get off this ice as fast as I could, but that would be stupid. Reckless. The ice wouldn't hold if I went too fast. I'd go through, just like the driver last week. The lights stopped. They just hung there, hovering over the ice. I stared at them. They looked like flames now, bright and orange, dancing. But there was nothing burning, nothing to fuel them, just fire on ice. And then they went out, all at once, like someone had blown them out. The darkness rushed in. My headlights seemed dimmer, weaker. I couldn't see as far. I checked the dashboard. Everything was normal. Battery good, lights on. But it felt darker. I kept driving. My eyes scanned the ice, looking for the shore, looking for the end of this frozen hell. The ice groaned again and again. It sounded like something was moving under it, something big. I told myself it was just the cold. Ice expanding and contracting. Normal. But it didn't sound normal. It sounded alive. The shore appeared in my headlights. Trees, solid ground. I almost cried with relief. I accelerated slightly. The rig surged forward. The ice cracked. A loud, sharp sound like a gunshot. I felt the trailer dip. My stomach dropped. I floored it. The tires spun, found grip. The rig lurched forward. I felt the trailer come up, back on solid ice. I kept the pedal down. The shore got closer. 30 yards, 20, 10. The tires hit gravel and I was off. On solid ground, safe. I drove another mile before I pulled over. I was shaking. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. I sat there with the engine idling, trying to catch my breath. I'd made it. I was alive, but I couldn't stop thinking about those lights. What were they? And why had Ivy warned me about them? How did she know? I pulled the receipt out of my pocket. The second one. The one with the right date. I looked at it in the dome light. December 14th, 2023. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. The name of the station. It was written at the top in small letters. Junction, Fuel, and Supply. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the map. Zoomed in on the area. Found the station. The listing said Junction, Fuel, and Supply, permanently closed. Closed since 2014. I didn't sleep that night. I made it to the mining camp around midnight. Unloaded the drilling equipment with the help of 2 workers who looked half-frozen and exhausted. They didn't talk much, just pointed where they wanted things and helped me secure the straps. The camp was a cluster of prefab buildings and generator lights in the middle of nowhere. It looked temporary, like it could be abandoned at any moment. The foreman signed my delivery sheet and offered me a bunk for the night. I took it. The bunk room was cramped and cold, despite the diesel heater running in the corner. 6 beds. 3 were occupied by sleeping workers. I took one near the door and lay down fully clothed. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the wind outside. I kept thinking about the station, Junction Fuel, permanently closed since 2014. But I'd been there. I'd filled my tank. I'd talked to Ivy. She'd given me coffee. She'd warned me about the lights. I pulled out my phone and searched for information. The signal was weak but enough. I found an old news article from 2014. Local fuel station closes after owner's death. The article was short. It said the owner, a man named Vincent Ketterling, had died in a fire. The station burned down. No one else was hurt. It had been rebuilt briefly by his daughter, but closed within a year due to lack of business. His daughter. I scrolled down. There was a picture. A young woman. Dark hair. Pale face. The caption read, Ivy Ketterling, 24, plans to keep her father's business running. My blood went cold. That was her. The woman I'd talked to. But this article was from 2014, 9 years ago. She would be 33 now. The woman I saw didn't look 33, she looked exactly like the photo. Exactly like she had 9 years ago. I closed the browser. My hands were shaking. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she just looked young. Maybe the photo was old. Maybe I was remembering wrong. But I wasn't. I knew what I'd seen, and I knew what the map said. Permanently closed. I didn't sleep. At first light, I loaded up and headed back. The return trip would take me past the station again. I had to see it, had to know. The sky was overcast. Heavy gray clouds that threatened snow. The temperature had dropped even more, -45. My breath formed ice on the inside of the windshield. I scraped it away with my glove and kept driving. I hit the ice road around noon. This time, I knew what to expect. I kept my speed steady, didn't look left or right, just focused on the road ahead. The ice groaned but held. No lights appeared. No flames dancing in the darkness. Just ice and silence. I made it across without incident. Back on solid ground. The trees closed in. I checked the odometer. The station should be coming up soon. My heart was pounding. Part of me wanted to drive past, pretend I'd never stopped there, but I had to know. The sign appeared. Junction Fuel, 500 feet. Same as before. Half buried in snow. I slowed and turned into the clearing, and stopped. The station was gone. Not closed, not boarded up, gone. There was nothing but a concrete foundation covered in snow. The pump was gone. The building was gone. All that remained was a blackened rectangle where something had once stood. The metal awning was twisted and collapsed on one side. Everything else was ash and snow. I sat there staring. This wasn't possible. I'd been here yesterday. I'd stood inside that building. I'd talked to Ivy. I'd drunk coffee. I had the receipt in my pocket. I climbed down from the cab. The cold was vicious, but I barely felt it. I walked to where the building had been. My boots crunched in the snow. I could see the foundation clearly now. Concrete blocks, charred wood, metal twisted by heat. This fire had happened years ago. Not yesterday, not last week. Years. I walked to where the pump had been. There was a concrete pad, cracked and stained, fuel lines sticking up out of the ground, frozen solid, unusable. I touched one. It was ice cold, hadn't been used in a long time. I pulled out the receipt, looked at it. The paper was real. The ink was real. I could feel it, see it, but how? I walked back to the foundation, looked for anything. Any sign that someone had been here recently. Footprints, tire tracks, anything. But there was nothing. Just snow and ash and the wind. A sound made me turn. A vehicle was coming down the road. I watched as a snowplow emerged from the trees. Big orange machine. Same one I'd seen on the way up. It pulled into the clearing and stopped. The driver climbed down. He was maybe 60, heavy coat, fur hat. He walked over to me. "You all right?" he said. "Yeah," I said, "just looking." He glanced at the foundation. "Sad, isn't it? What happened here?" "Fire, back in 2014. Owner died. Daughter tried to keep it running, but couldn't make it work. Place has been empty ever since. The daughter, Ivy. What happened to her?" He looked at me. "You know her?" "No, I just heard about her." He shook his head. "Tragic. She died a year after her father, car accident. Went through the ice on the lake road. They pulled her car out but never found her body." My chest tightened. "She went through the ice?" "Yeah. Same spot where that trucker went through last week. It's a bad stretch. Ice is always thin there." I stared at him. "You said a trucker went through last week?" "Yeah. You didn't hear? Happened 5 days ago. They got the rig out, but the driver's still missing. Probably won't find him until spring." 5 days ago. The same day I'd stopped at the station. The same day Ivy had warned me about the ice, about the lights. The snowplow driver studied me. "You sure you're all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, just cold. Well, don't stay out here too long. Storm's coming. You need to get moving." "Yeah, thanks." He climbed back into his plow and drove off. I stood there for a few more minutes, looking at the ruins, thinking about Ivy, about the station, about the receipt in my pocket. I walked back to my rig, climbed in, started the engine. As I pulled away, I looked in the mirror. The clearing was empty. Just snow and ash and the skeleton of a building that had burned down 9 years ago. But I'd been there. I'd talked to Ivy. I had proof. I pulled the receipt out of my pocket, unfolded it, looked at it one more time. The date had changed. It no longer said December 14th, 2023. Now it said December 14th, 2013. I stared at it. This wasn't possible. I'd checked it. I'd seen the right date. But now it was wrong. Or maybe it had always been wrong. Maybe I just wanted it to be right. I folded the receipt and put it back in my pocket. I didn't understand what had happened. But I knew one thing. I'd stopped at a station that didn't exist. I'd talked to a woman who'd been dead for 8 years, and somehow, I'd made it out alive. The snow started falling, heavy and thick. I turned on the wipers and kept driving. The road stretched ahead, long and white and empty. I thought about the lights on the ice, the flames dancing in the darkness. Ivy had warned me not to follow them, and I hadn't. Maybe that's why I was still here. Maybe that's why I'd made it out. Or maybe I was supposed to see her, supposed to get that warning, because without it, I might have followed those lights. Might have driven off the road. Might have gone through the ice like she did. Like the trucker last week did. I didn't know. And I never would. I made it back to Dawson City by nightfall. The snow had gotten worse. A full blizzard now. Visibility was near zero. I could barely see the road. I pulled into the truck yard and parked near the office. The place was mostly empty. Most drivers had the sense to stay off the roads in weather like this. I sat in the cab for a while. The heater struggled to keep up with the cold. My fingers were numb. My feet ached. But I didn't want to go inside yet. I needed to think, needed to process what had happened. The receipt was still in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at it again. December 14th, 2013. The date hadn't changed back. It stayed wrong. Or right, depending on how you looked at it. I thought about calling someone, telling them what I'd seen, but who would believe me? A dead woman gave me fuel at a burned-down station, a receipt that changed dates, lights on the ice that warned of danger. It sounded insane. Hell, I wasn't sure I believed it myself. I finally climbed down and walked to the office. Inside, it was warm. Too warm. The dispatcher sat behind a desk covered in papers and coffee cups. He looked up when I entered. "Heath, you made it back." "Yeah, hell of a storm. You're lucky you got in when you did. They're closing the roads." "Good." He studied me. "You look like shit. You all right?" "Just tired." "Well, take a few days. No one's going anywhere in this weather anyway." I nodded. "Thanks." I walked back out into the storm. The wind was howling now. Snow blew sideways. I could barely see my truck 20 feet away. I pulled my hood tight and walked to the small motel across the street. I rented a room, took a hot shower, lay down on the bed, and couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ivy, standing in that doorway, watching me drive away. Her face was so clear, so real. But she was dead, had been dead for 8 years. Around midnight, I gave up on sleep. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up everything I could find about Junction Fuel. There wasn't much. A few old articles, some forum posts from drivers who'd used the station back in the day. Most of them remembered it fondly. Good service, fair prices, a reliable stop in the middle of nowhere. One post caught my attention. It was from 2015. A driver named Lowry Grunwald. He'd written about his experience at the station just before it closed. I stopped at Junction Fuel in December 2014. The place was falling apart but still open. The owner's daughter was running it. Nice girl. Seemed sad, though, like she was carrying a heavy weight. She warned me about the ice road. Said her father had died trying to save a driver who went through. She blamed herself for not being there. Said she should have been working that night. A month later, I heard she'd died too. Went through the ice at the same spot. Some people said it was an accident. Others said she did it on purpose. Either way, it's a damn shame. I read the post 3 times. She blamed herself. Her father had died trying to save someone, and she'd died at the same spot, the same stretch of ice where she'd warned me to be careful. I searched for more information about Vincent Ketterling's death, found another article. This one had more details. It said he'd seen a truck break through the ice. He'd gone out to help, managed to get the driver out but fell through himself. The cold water killed him within minutes. The driver survived. Vincent didn't. The article included a quote from Ivy. "My father died doing what he always did, helping people. He knew that ice was dangerous. He knew the risks, but he went anyway. That's who he was." I closed the laptop. The pieces were starting to fit together. Vincent had died saving a driver on the ice road. Ivy had taken over the station, tried to keep it running. But the guilt had eaten her alive. She'd warned drivers, tried to prevent what happened to her father from happening again. And then she'd died at the same spot. But why had I seen her? Why had she appeared to me? I thought about the timing. I'd stopped at the station on December 14th, the same date as her death. December 14th, 2014. 9 years ago. Had she been trying to warn me? Or had I somehow slipped through time? Stopped at the station as it was back then? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. If I hadn't stopped there, if Ivy hadn't warned me about the lights, I might not have made it across that ice. I might have followed those flames, driven off the road, gone through. Maybe that's why she was still there, still warning drivers, still trying to save them, even after death. The thought made my skin crawl, but it also made sense in a way that nothing else did. I lay back down. This time, I slept, fitfully, full of dreams about ice and fire and a woman standing in a doorway, watching, waiting, warning. The next morning, I woke to silence. The storm had passed. I looked out the window. Everything was white and bright and clean, like the world had been reset. I got dressed and walked back to the truck yard. The dispatcher was there, same spot, same desk. He looked up when I entered. "Roads are open," he said. "But not the ice roads. Won't be safe for another few days at least." "Good," I said. "I'm not in a hurry." He nodded, then he pulled out a piece of paper. "Got a message for you. Came in this morning." I took it. It was a note. Handwritten. The writing was neat. Careful. "Heath, be careful out there. The ice remembers. LG." I stared at it. LG Lowry Grunwald, the driver who'd posted about Ivy. How did he know I'd be here? How did he know to send this message? "Who gave you this?" I asked. The dispatcher shrugged. "Found it under the door this morning. No name, no return address, just that note." I folded it and put it in my pocket. Next to the receipt, 2 pieces of paper that shouldn't exist, 2 warnings from people who knew more than they should. I walked out into the cold. The sun was bright but gave no warmth. I stood there for a moment, looking at the road, thinking about what lay ahead, more ice, more cold, more darkness. But now I knew something. The ice remembered. The people who died there were still there, still watching, still trying to help, or maybe trying to pull others down with them. I wasn't sure which. All I knew was that I had to be careful, had to listen to the warnings, had to respect what I didn't understand, because up here, in the frozen north, the rules were different. Death wasn't always the end, and sometimes the dead were more alive than the living. I stayed in Dawson for 3 days, waited for the ice road to be declared safe, waited for the cold to ease up. It didn't. The temperature stayed locked at -40. The sky stayed gray. The wind never stopped. On the 4th day, I got a call. Another delivery. Same route. Dawson to the mining camp. Different cargo this time. Food supplies, medical equipment, stuff the camp needed to keep running. I didn't want to go. The thought of crossing that ice again made my stomach turn. But this was my job. This was what I did. And I couldn't let fear control me. Not if I wanted to keep working. I loaded up and left at first light. The road was as bad as I remembered. Maybe worse. Fresh snow had fallen overnight. The plows were out but barely keeping up. I followed one for the first 20 miles. Watched the blade push snow off to the side. The plow driver never looked back. Just kept moving forward. Steady. Relentless. Eventually, the plow turned off onto a side road. I was on my own again. The highway stretched ahead. White and narrow and lonely. I reached the clearing where Junction Fuel had been around noon. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just kept my eyes on the road and drove past. But I looked. Of course I looked. The ruins were still there. Snow-covered, silent, empty. or almost empty. For just a second, I thought I saw movement. A figure standing near the foundation. Dark coat, ponytail, watching the road. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just snow and shadows and my imagination. I kept driving. The ice road appeared an hour later. Same as before. White and smooth and terrifying. I took a breath and rolled onto it. The ice groaned. The rig shuddered. I kept my speed steady. This time, I knew what to expect. I knew the lights might come. And they did. They appeared about halfway across. Off to my right this time. Flickering. Dancing. Orange and bright. I didn't look at them, didn't turn my head, just kept my eyes forward, focused on the road. The lights moved closer. I could see them in my peripheral vision, but I didn't look, didn't react. And then I heard it. A voice, faint, whispering, coming from the CB even though it was turned off. I glanced at it. The screen was dark. No power. But the voice was there. Heath. My blood ran cold. That was Ivy's voice. I was sure of it. The same tone, the same cadence. Heath, don't stop. I gripped the wheel tighter. My knuckles were white. My breath came fast. The lights were closer now, maybe 20 yards away. They looked like flames, but there was no heat, no smoke. Just light on ice. Heath, keep moving. I wanted to turn the CB on, ask her what was happening. But I didn't dare. I just drove, faster now, pushing the limits of what the ice could handle. The trailer swayed, the rig groaned. But I kept moving, the lights stopped, they hung there, right at the edge of my vision, waiting. And then they went out, all at once. Darkness rushed in, but the voice didn't stop. Heath, the ice remembers. The ice beneath me cracked. A sharp sound like a gunshot. The rig lurched. I felt the front end dip. My heart stopped. I was going through. This was it. I floored it. The engine roared. The tires spun, found grip. The rig surged forward. The cracking sound followed me. I could hear it, feel it. The ice breaking apart behind me, chasing me. The shore was ahead. 50 yards, 40, 30, I kept the pedal down. The rig bounced and shook, the trailer fishtailed. But I didn't let up. 20 yards, 10. The tires hit gravel, solid ground. I was off, safe. I didn't stop. I kept driving. A mile, 2 miles. Finally, I pulled over. My whole body was shaking. My hands could barely hold the wheel. I sat there gasping, trying to catch my breath. I'd made it, again, but barely. The ice had almost taken me. Would have taken me if I'd stopped, if I'd looked at the lights. The CB crackled. I stared at it. It was still off, no power. But it crackled anyway. Thank you, Ivy's voice. One last time, and then silence. I reached over and pulled the CB out of the dash, yanked the wires, threw it in the back of the cab. I didn't want to hear it anymore, didn't want to risk it. I drove the rest of the way to the mining camp in silence. Made the delivery. Turned around and came back. This time, I took a different route. Longer. Slower. But it avoided the ice road entirely. Avoided junction fuel. Avoided everything. When I got back to Dawson, I went straight to the dispatcher. Told him I was done with the northern routes. Done with the ice roads. He didn't ask why. Just nodded and reassigned me. Southern routes now. Shorter hauls, less money. But safer. I've been driving south for 6 months now. Haven't been back to the Yukon. Haven't crossed another ice road. And I don't plan to. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in the cab, I hear it. That voice. Faint. Whispering. Heath, the ice remembers. And I know it's true. The ice does remember. It remembers everyone who crossed it, everyone who died on it. And it's waiting, always waiting. I still have the receipt. December 14th, 2013. I keep it in my wallet, a reminder, a warning. Some roads aren't meant to be traveled. Some places aren't meant to exist. And some people never really leave. Ivy Ketterling saved my life. Twice. Once at the station that didn't exist. Once on the ice that tried to kill me. I don't know why, don't know how, but I'm grateful. And I'll never forget her warning. Don't follow the lights, don't stop on the ice, and remember, the ice always remembers. My name is Connell Bristow. I've been hauling logs through northern British Columbia for 16 years. It's hard work, dangerous work, the kind that ages you fast and doesn't forgive mistakes. I'm 41 now, and I feel 50. My back aches, my hands are scarred, but I'm still here, still driving, still making the runs that younger drivers won't take. It was late January, the dead of winter, the kind of cold that makes steel brittle and diesel gel up in the lines. I was hauling a load of timber from a logging camp near the Alaska border down to a mill in Prince George. 300 miles of mountain roads, ice, snow, and fog. Always fog this time of year. It rolled down from the peaks and settled in the valleys like something alive. Thick, gray, impenetrable. I left the camp at 4 in the morning. Still dark. The temperature was minus 38. My rig was loaded heavy. 40 tons of fresh-cut spruce strapped to the flatbed. The logs were massive. Old-growth timber. The kind they don't cut much anymore. The weight made the rig handle like a tank. Slow, unforgiving, but steady. The first hour was smooth. The road was narrow, but plowed. The headlights cut through the darkness. I passed a few other trucks heading up to the camps. We flashed our lights at each other. A silent acknowledgement. You're not alone. Not yet. By 5:30, the fog started. It came in patches at first. Wisps that drifted across the road and disappeared. But as I climbed higher into the mountains, it got thicker. Denser. Soon, I was driving through a gray wall. My headlights barely penetrated it. I could see maybe 20 feet ahead. Maybe. I slowed down, dropped to 30 miles an hour, then 20. The fog pressed against the windshield like it was trying to get inside. I turned on the fog lights. They helped a little. Not much. The road twisted through the mountains. Tight curves, steep drops. No guardrails, just a narrow strip of asphalt between the rock face and the abyss. I'd driven this route 100 times, but never in fog this thick. Every turn was a gamble. Every straight stretch felt too short. Around 6, I passed another truck. A log hauler heading the opposite direction. I caught a glimpse of it in my lights. Big rig, loaded down. The driver gave a short honk. I honked back, then he was gone, swallowed by the fog. I kept driving, the radio played static. Nothing but static up here. I'd given up on music or news hours ago. Just me and the engine and the fog. The heater worked, but barely. I could see my breath in the cab. I wore 2 layers of thermal clothes, a heavy jacket, gloves, a wool hat under my hood. Still cold. The GPS showed the route clearly. A red line winding through the mountains. But what I was seeing didn't always match. The road seemed longer. The curves sharper. The fog made everything uncertain. I had to trust the feel of the wheel, the sound of the tires, the decades of experience that lived in my hands and feet. Around 7, I saw something in the road. A shape. Dark against the gray. I hit the brakes. The rig slowed, The trailer groaned behind me. The shape didn't move. I stopped about 50 feet away and stared. It was a person, standing in the middle of the road, facing me, not moving, just standing there. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The cold hit me like a fist. The fog was so thick I could barely see the front of my own rig. I walked forward slowly. My boots crunched in the snow. My breath formed clouds that merged with the fog. "Hey!" I called out. "You all right?" No response. I got closer, 10 feet, 5. The figure came into focus. A man, tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing a dark jacket, jeans, no hat, no gloves. His face was pale, too pale. His eyes were open but didn't seem to see me. "Hey," I said again. "You need help?" He didn't answer, didn't blink, just stood there. I shined the flashlight on him. His clothes were old, worn. The jacket had tears in it. His boots were falling apart, and his skin. Something was wrong with his skin. It looked waxy, gray, like he'd been out here too long. "Are you hurt?" I asked. Nothing. I stepped closer. That's when I noticed his breath, or the lack of it. The temperature was -40 now. Everyone's breath was visible in this cold, but not his. No clouds, no vapor, just stillness. My chest tightened. Something was very wrong here. "Listen," I said. "You can't stay out here. You'll freeze. Get in the truck." He didn't move. I waited, counted to 10. He just stood there, staring, not at me, through me, like I wasn't there. I made a decision. I couldn't leave him. Out here, in this cold, he'd be dead in an hour, maybe less. I reached out and touched his arm. The jacket was frozen solid, stiff, and cold. Colder than it should be, colder than the air. "Come on," I said. I took his arm and pulled gently. He moved, stiff, mechanical, like a puppet. I guided him back to the truck. He didn't resist, didn't help, just let me lead him. I opened the passenger door and helped him up. He climbed in slowly, awkward, like he'd forgotten how to use his body. I closed the door and walked around to the driver's side. Climbed in. Started the heater on full blast. The man sat in the passenger seat, stiff, upright, hands in his lap, staring straight ahead. I looked at him, really looked. His face was gaunt, sunken eyes, hollow cheeks. His hair was matted, dirty, and his hands. His fingernails were black. Frostbite, severe. "What's your name?" I asked. No response. "Where are you from? Where are you trying to go?" Nothing. He just stared. I waited, gave him time. Maybe he was in shock. Hypothermia could do that. Make you silent, distant, unresponsive. I reached over and checked his pulse. His wrist was ice cold. I pressed my fingers against the skin, waited, and felt nothing. No pulse, no heartbeat. I jerked my hand back, my breath caught. This wasn't possible. He was sitting right here, moving, breathing. Except he wasn't breathing. I watched his chest. No rise, no fall, just stillness. I told myself I was wrong. The cold had numbed my fingers. I couldn't feel the pulse because of my gloves. That was it. Had to be. "Listen," I said. "I'm taking you down the mountain. There's a medical station about 50 miles south. They'll take care of you. Just sit tight, okay?" He didn't respond. Didn't even blink. I put the rig in gear and started driving. The fog was worse now. I could barely see the road. The man sat beside me, silent, still, and I tried not to think about what I'd felt, or hadn't felt. We drove for 20 minutes. The road descended. The curves got tighter. I had to focus. Had to keep the rig on the road, but I kept glancing at him, checking. He never moved, never shifted, just sat there, hands in his lap, staring. I tried talking to him, telling him about the route, about the weather, about anything. He never responded, never reacted. It was like talking to a statue. Around 8, the fog thinned a little. I could see further, maybe 40 feet now. The road leveled out. I checked the GPS. We were making progress. Another 30 miles to the medical station. I could make it. That's when I noticed the smell. Faint at first, then stronger. It was coming from the passenger seat. A wet smell, like damp earth or rotting wood. I glanced at the man. His clothes looked wet now. The jacket glistened in the dashboard light. Water dripped from the hem, pooled on the seat. "You're soaked," I said. "How long were you out there?" No answer. The water kept dripping. I reached over and touched the jacket. It was ice cold and wet. Not melting snow, not rain, just water, like he'd been submerged. My hands started shaking. I pulled back, focused on the road, tried to think. This didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. But I couldn't stop now. I had to get him help. Had to get us both off this mountain. The fog closed in again, thicker than before. The road disappeared. I slowed to a crawl. 10 miles an hour. 5. I could barely see the yellow line. The man sat beside me, dripping, silent, and I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I reached the medical station just after 9. It wasn't much, a small building with a generator and a single light above the door. But it was staffed. A nurse, a paramedic, sometimes a doctor if you were lucky. I pulled into the gravel lot and parked. Killed the engine. The silence was immediate and heavy. I looked at the passenger seat. The man was still there, still sitting upright, still staring. But the seat was soaked. Water had pooled beneath him. It was dripping onto the floor. And his jacket. It wasn't just wet anymore. It was frozen. Ice clung to the fabric. Frost covered his shoulders. "We're here," I said. "I'm going to get help. Stay put." He didn't respond. I climbed down and walked to the building. The door was unlocked. Inside, it was warm. Too warm. A wood stove in the corner glowed red. A woman sat behind a desk. She looked up when I entered, early 50s, gray hair pulled back, tired eyes. "Help you?" she said. "I've got someone in my truck, found him on the road. He's not responsive. Might be hypothermia." She stood up quickly, grabbed a coat from a hook. "Where is he?" "Passenger seat." We walked outside together. The cold hit us both. She pulled her coat tight and followed me to the truck. I opened the passenger door. The seat was empty. I stared. The man was gone, just gone. But the seat was still wet. Water still dripped. And there was something else, a smell. That same damp earth smell. Stronger now. "Where is he?" she asked. "He was right here. I swear, he was sitting right here." She looked at me, then at the seat, then back at me. "There's no one here." I know, but he was. I picked him up on the road, drove him here. He was sitting right there. She studied the wet seat, touched it. Her fingers came away damp. She frowned. "This is fresh, but where did he go?" "I don't know." We both looked around. The lot was empty. No footprints in the snow. No tracks leading away. Just my rig and the building and the fog pressing in from all sides. "What did he look like?" she asked. "Tall, dark jacket, pale, really pale, and cold. His skin was frozen, and he wasn't breathing. Or I couldn't feel a pulse." She went still. "What was his name?" He never said, never spoke at all. She backed away from the truck. Her face had gone white. "Did he have dark hair, matted, and black fingernails?" I stared at her. "Yeah. How did you know?" She shook her head. "You need to come inside now." I followed her back to the building. She closed the door and locked it, poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot on the stove, handed me one. Her hands were shaking. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. I told her everything. Finding him in the road, the stiffness, the cold, the lack of breath or pulse, the way his clothes were wet and frozen, the water dripping, the smell. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set her cup down and looked at me. "That's the 3rd time this year," she said. "Third time what?" "Third driver who's picked him up. Or someone like him." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a folder. Opened it. Inside were reports, handwritten notes, dates and names. She pulled out one and handed it to me. It was dated 3 weeks ago. A driver named Sutter Rames had reported picking up a hitchhiker on the same stretch of road. Same description. Tall, dark jacket, pale, not breathing. He'd driven the man to this station, and when he arrived, the passenger was gone. Just vanished. Seat was wet, frozen, smelled like damp earth. "Where's this driver now?" I asked. "He left, headed south. I tried to follow up, but he never answered his phone." She pulled out another report. This one from 2 months ago. Different driver, same story, same road, same passenger, same result. Vanished at the station. "What is this?" I said. "Who is he?" "I don't know, but I have a theory." She pulled out a newspaper clipping. Old, yellowed, dated 15 years ago. The headline read, "Local man missing after vehicle found in creek." I read the article. A man named Marlon Hedden had gone missing in January 2009. His truck had been found in a creek bed at the bottom of a ravine. The creek was frozen solid. No sign of the driver. Search crews looked for days, never found him. They assumed he'd been thrown from the vehicle. The current had carried his body downstream, under the ice. "You think that's him?" I said. "I think it might be. The description matches, and the location. He went missing on the same stretch of road where drivers keep picking him up." "But that was 15 years ago." "I know." I looked at the clipping again. There was a photo. A man, tall, dark hair. The picture was grainy, but I could see the resemblance. The same hollow eyes. The same gaunt face. It could be him, or someone who looked like him. "Why would he still be out there?" I asked. "Maybe he's trying to get somewhere, trying to finish the drive. Or maybe he's just lost, trapped between here and wherever he was going." I set the clipping down. My hands were shaking. "This doesn't make sense. He was in my truck. I touched him. He was real." "I believe you." The other drivers said the same thing. "He's real, or real enough, but he's not alive, not anymore." I thought about the cold, the wet clothes, the lack of breath, the water dripping. It all fit. He'd gone into the creek, under the ice. The cold had killed him. And somehow he'd never left. Still walking that road. Still trying to get somewhere. "What do I do?" I said. "Nothing. You did what you could. You tried to help. That's more than most people would do. But he's still out there, on the road. Someone else is going to pick him up. Maybe. Or maybe he'll keep walking, keep trying, until he finds whatever he's looking for." I finished the coffee. It was cold now. Bitter. I stood up. "I need to get going. I've got a delivery." She nodded. "Be careful out there. The fog's getting worse." "Yeah." I walked back to the truck, climbed in. The passenger seat was still wet. I grabbed a rag from behind the seat and wiped it down. The water was ice cold. It soaked into the rag and dripped onto the floor. I wiped as much as I could. Then I threw the rag in the back. I started the engine and pulled out of the lot. The fog was thick again. I could barely see the road. I drove slowly, carefully, watching for shapes in the gray, watching for him. But I didn't see him, not on the road, not standing in the fog. He was gone, back to wherever he came from. Or still walking, still searching. I thought about what the nurse had said. He was trying to finish the drive, trying to get somewhere. But where? And why? What could be so important that he'd keep walking for 15 years? Keep appearing to drivers who couldn't help him? I didn't have answers. And I never would. I made the delivery in Prince George 2 days later. The mill took the logs and signed the paperwork. I refueled, grabbed food, slept in a motel, and then I headed back north. Same route, same mountain roads, same fog. I didn't want to go back. The thought of that road made my skin crawl. But I had another load waiting at the camp. Work didn't stop because you were scared. You pushed through. You kept driving. I left Prince George at dawn. The temperature was -35. The sky was clear for the first hour. I made good time, but as I climbed into the mountains, the fog rolled in. Just like before. Thick, gray, suffocating. I slowed down, kept my eyes on the road. Every shape in the fog made me tense. Every shadow looked like a person. But I didn't see him. Not yet. Around noon, I passed another truck. A log hauler heading south. I flashed my lights. The driver flashed back. Then he was gone. I kept driving. The road wound higher. The curves got tighter. I had to focus. Couldn't let my mind wander. Couldn't think about the passenger, about the wet seat, about the water dripping. But I kept seeing it, kept replaying it in my mind. The way he'd stood in the road. The way he'd moved. Stiff. Mechanical. The way his clothes were frozen. The way he'd just vanished. I reached the spot where I'd found him around 2. I recognized it, a straight stretch between 2 curves. Rock face on the left, drop-off on the right. I slowed down, looked. The road was empty, just fog and asphalt and snow. I kept driving, didn't stop, didn't want to stop. The fog pressed against the windshield. I turned on the fog lights, they barely helped. Around 3, I saw lights ahead, red taillights. Another truck moving slowly. I caught up and stayed behind it. Better to follow someone than drive blind. We moved together through the fog, a convoy of 2. The truck ahead braked, I braked. We stopped, I waited. After a minute, I keyed the CB. "What's the holdup?" Static, then a voice, deep, tired. "Something in the road." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "I don't know, can't see through the fog. Hold on." I waited, watched. The red taillights glowed in the gray. I could hear the other truck's engine idling. After a few minutes, the voice came back. "It's clear, just a deer, dead. Someone must have hit it." "Copy." The truck ahead started moving. I followed. We drove for another hour. The fog never lifted. Around 4, the other truck took a side road. I flashed my lights. He flashed back. Then I was alone again. I kept driving. The GPS showed the camp was close. Another 20 miles. I could make it before dark. I pushed on. Around 4:30, I saw him again. He was standing on the side of the road. Same spot as before. Same dark jacket. Same pale face. Just standing there. Watching. I hit the brakes. The rig slowed. Stopped. I stared. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Just stood there. I should have kept driving. Should have ignored him. But I couldn't. Something pulled me. I didn't understand it. Didn't want to understand it. I just knew I had to stop. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. walked toward him. The fog swirled around me. My boots crunched in the snow. He watched me approach. Those hollow eyes locked onto mine. "It's you," I said. He didn't respond, just stared. "What do you want? Where are you trying to go?" "Nothing." I got closer, close enough to see his face clearly. The same gaunt features, the same waxy skin, and his clothes. They were wet, dripping, frozen. "I can't help you," I said. "I tried, but I don't know what you need." He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening or trying to understand. Then he raised one hand, slowly pointed. Not at me, past me, down the road. I turned and looked. The fog was too thick. I couldn't see anything. What's down there?" He kept pointing, his arm outstretched, rigid. I looked back at him. His eyes were still on me, but there was something in them now. Not life, not exactly, but something. A need, a desperation. "I don't understand," I said. He lowered his arm, turned, and walked into the fog. I watched him go. His figure faded, became a shadow. Then nothing. I stood there for a long moment. The cold seeped through my jacket. My fingers went numb. But I didn't move. I just stared into the fog where he'd disappeared. Finally, I walked back to the truck, climbed in, started the engine. My mind was racing. He'd pointed down the road. What was down there? What did he want me to see? I shifted into gear and started driving, slowly, carefully, watching. The road curved to the right, then straightened, and then I saw it. A guardrail, twisted, broken, hanging over the edge, old, rusted. The metal was bent outward, like something had crashed through it. I stopped, got out, walked to the edge, looked down. The ravine dropped steeply, maybe 100 feet. At the bottom, I could see water, a creek, frozen solid. And next to the creek, half buried in snow, was a truck, old, rusted. The cab was crushed, the windshield shattered. It had been there a long time, years, buried by snow and time and forgotten. My breath caught. This was it. This was where he'd gone off the road, where he'd died. This was Marlon Hedden's truck. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course not. I took pictures anyway. The guardrail, the ravine, the truck at the bottom. Evidence, proof. I walked back to my rig, sat in the cab, stared at the broken guardrail. He'd been trying to show me, trying to lead me here, but why? What did it matter? He was dead. The truck was wrecked. The case was closed 15 years ago. Unless he wanted to be found, wanted someone to know where he was, wanted his family to have closure. I thought about the nurse, the reports, the other drivers who'd picked him up. Had any of them found this spot? Had any of them seen the truck? I didn't know, but I would tell them. I would report it. I would make sure someone came out here and checked. Made sure Marlon Hedden was finally laid to rest. I put the rig in gear and drove on. The camp was close now. Just a few more miles. The fog was thinning. I could see further. The road opened up. But I kept thinking about him. Standing on the side of the road. Pointing, trying to communicate, trying to finish what he'd started 15 years ago. And I wondered, would he finally rest now? Or would he keep walking? Keep appearing to drivers? Keep searching? I didn't know. But I hoped he'd find peace. Whatever that looked like for someone like him. I reached the logging camp just after 5. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple. Beautiful, cold. I pulled into the yard and parked. The foreman met me, signed the paperwork, told me the next load would be ready in the morning. I didn't mention the passenger, didn't mention the truck in the ravine, not yet. I needed to be sure, needed to verify what I'd seen. That night, I stayed in the camp bunkhouse. A small room with a wood stove and 4 beds. 2 other drivers were there. We didn't talk much, just ate, played cards, went to sleep. I lay awake for hours, thinking about Marlin, about the truck, about the fog. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, standing in the road, pointing. In the morning, I loaded up and headed back south. I had a delivery in Prince George, same route, same mountain roads. I drove slowly, watching for the spot. I found it around noon, the broken guardrail. I pulled over, climbed down, walked to the edge, looked down into the ravine. The truck was still there, half buried, waiting. I called 911. This time I had a signal. Weak, but enough. I reported the wreck, gave them the location, told them I'd found an old vehicle at the bottom of a ravine. They asked if there were injuries. I said I didn't know. The truck had been there a long time. They said they'd send someone out, a recovery team. It might take a few days. The location was remote. The terrain was difficult. But they'd check it out. I hung up, stood there for a while, looking at the truck, wondering if Marlin was still inside, or if the creek had carried him away like they'd thought. I drove on, made the delivery, filed my report, and then I went back to the medical station. The nurse was there, same woman. She looked up when I entered. "You're back," she said. "Yeah, I found something." I told her about the truck, about the broken guardrail, about calling 911. She listened. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "That explains it," she said. "Explains what?" "Why he keeps appearing, why he won't leave." He wanted someone to find him, to know where he was. You think that's all he wanted? Maybe. Or maybe he wanted his family to know, to have closure. 15 years is a long time to be missing. I thought about that. Do you know if he had family? I remember the case. Wife and a daughter, they moved away years ago. Couldn't stay here after he disappeared. Too many memories. Will someone tell them? I'm sure the police will, once they confirm it's his truck. I nodded. Good. I left the station and headed home. The drive took 2 days. I stayed in motels, ate at truck stops, tried not to think about the passenger, about the wet seat, about the water dripping. But I couldn't stop. It was always there, in the back of my mind, the image of him standing in the fog, pointing, trying to communicate. A week later, I got a call. The recovery team had reached the truck. It was Marlin Hedden's. They'd found remains inside, frozen, preserved by the cold and the ice. They'd recovered him, identified him through dental records. His family had been notified. The nurse called me a few days after that. Said she wanted to thank me. Said Marlin's daughter had reached out. She wanted to meet the driver who'd found her father. I met her at a diner in Prince George. She was in her 20s, dark hair, tired eyes. She looked like him, the same features, the same face. "Thank you," she said, "for finding him, for not giving up." "I didn't do much," I said. "I just reported what I saw." "You did more than that. You listened. Most people wouldn't have stopped, wouldn't have looked." I didn't know what to say. She reached into her bag and pulled out a photo, handed it to me. It was Marlin, younger, smiling, standing next to a truck, his truck. "This was taken a month before he disappeared," she said. "He was hauling logs. Same route you drive. He loved that road. Said it was the most beautiful drive in the world." I looked at the photo. He looked happy, alive. Nothing like the figure I'd picked up in the fog. "I'm sorry," I said, "for what happened to him." "Me too. But at least now we know. We can finally say goodbye." She took the photo back. stood, shook my hand. "Thank you again. You gave us closure. That's more than we ever thought we'd get." She left. I sat there for a while, looking out the window, thinking about Marlin, about the road, about the fog. I drove that route many more times over the next few months. Every time, I watched for him, watched for that figure in the fog. But I never saw him again. The road was empty, just fog and snow, and the endless gray. The nurse told me later that no other drivers reported picking him up. No more wet seats. No more vanishing passengers. He was gone, finally at rest. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving through the fog, I think I see him. Just a shadow, just a shape at the edge of my vision. I blink, and he's gone. Maybe it's my imagination. Maybe it's just the fog playing tricks. Or maybe he's still out there, still walking, still searching, not for help, not for rescue, but for someone to remember, someone to care, someone to stop. I stopped. I listened. I found him. And now he can rest. But the road remembers. The fog remembers. And sometimes, when the temperature drops and the gray closes in, I remember too. The passenger who wasn't breathing. The man who pointed the way. The ghost of Marlin Hedden. Still walking his favorite road. Still trying to get home. And I hope, wherever he is now, he finally made it. My name is Deacon Tolliver. I'm 39 years old, and I've been hauling freight through Alaska for 11 years. People think it's romantic. The last frontier. Wide open spaces. Freedom. They don't know about the cold that cracks your teeth. The darkness that swallows whole days. The isolation that eats at your mind until you're not sure what's real anymore. It was early February. Peak winter. The kind of cold that makes diesel turn to jelly and steel snap like dry wood. I was running a load of construction equipment from Fairbanks to Prudhoe Bay. 400 miles of the Dalton Highway, also called the Hall Road, also called the most dangerous road in America. I left Fairbanks at midnight. That's when most of us leave. Less traffic. Fewer tourists trying to drive rental cars on ice. Just professional drivers who know what they're doing. Or think they do. The first 100 miles were decent. Plowed, sanded. The rig handled well despite the load. 12,000 pounds of drilling equipment. Heavy, but balanced. I kept my speed at 40. Any faster and you risk losing control. Any slower and you might not make the hills. The radio played country music for the first hour. Some station out of Fairbanks. Then it faded to static. Normal up here. I switched to CB. Channel 19. The trucker channel. A few voices crackled through. Drivers checking positions. Warning about icy spots. The usual chatter. Around 2 in the morning the voices stopped. Just static. I wasn't worried. Happens all the time when you're between relay towers. I turned the volume down and focused on driving. The road climbed steadily. The Yukon River was behind me. Ahead was the Brooks Range. Mountains that cut across the state like a frozen spine. The highway wound through them, steep grades, tight curves, and ice. Always ice. My headlights cut through the darkness. Snow piled high on both sides of the road. The trees were gone now, too high up. Just tundra and rock and endless white. The stars were bright. No moon. Just stars by the thousands. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't so hostile. Around 3, I heard something on the CB. Not voices, just a sound. A low hum. Steady. Rhythmic. Like breathing. I turned the volume up. The sound got louder. It wasn't static. It was too regular, too deliberate. I keyed the mic. Anyone out there? The hum stopped. Silence. Then static. I waited. Nothing. I set the mic down and kept driving. 10 minutes later, the hum started again. Same sound, same rhythm. I grabbed the mic. This is Deacon on the Dalton. Someone broadcasting on this channel? The hum stopped. A voice crackled through. Male, distant, broken up by static. Help cold. My chest tightened. Someone was in trouble. I keyed the mic. Say again, where are you? North, can't help. Give me a landmark, what do you see? Static, the voice was gone. Just the hum again. Low. Steady, I tried calling again. No response. Just that sound. Like breathing. Like something alive on the other end. I checked my GPS. I was about 40 miles north of Coldfoot, the only real settlement between Fairbanks and Prudhoe. There was an emergency services station there, small, mostly for road crews and stranded drivers. If someone was in trouble, that's where they'd go, or try to go. I kept driving. The road leveled out. A straight stretch through a valley. My headlights caught something on the shoulder. A shape, dark against the white. I slowed down. As I got closer, I saw it was a truck. Old semi, pulled off to the side. No lights, no movement. The cab was dark. Snow had piled against the tires. It looked like it had been there for hours, maybe days. I pulled over behind it and grabbed my flashlight. Climbed down. The cold was vicious. -50 at least. My breath froze instantly. My face hurt. I pulled my balaclava up and walked to the truck. The driver's door was closed but not locked. I opened it. The cab was empty. No driver. No keys in the ignition. The sleeper curtain was drawn. I shined my light back there. Empty too, just a sleeping bag and some trash. The radio was on. CB Channel 19. The screen glowed faintly. And from the speaker came that sound, the hum. Low, steady, breathing. I reached for the radio, touched the dial. The hum stopped. Silence. Then the voice. Help me, please. Where are you? I said into the empty cab. Cold, so cold. I'm at your truck, on the Dalton. Where did you go? Can't find the road. My skin went cold. This didn't make sense. The truck was right here, empty. But the voice sounded close, like whoever it was could see me. I backed away, climbed into my own rig, locked the doors, grabbed my CB mic. This is Deacon on the Dalton. I've got an abandoned truck at mile marker 175, no driver. If anyone's listening, I need confirmation. Over. Static, no response. I tried again. Anyone on this channel? I need help at marker 175. The hum returned, louder now, coming from my own radio, and underneath it, the voice. Help me, Deacon. It knew my name. I stared at the radio. My hands were shaking. How did it know my name? I'd said it once, on the CB, but that was 10 minutes ago. And the voice had been different then. Distant. Broken. Now it was clear, close, like someone sitting in the passenger seat. I looked at the passenger seat. Empty. Just my jacket and a thermos. I looked back at the radio. Who are you? I said. Help. Where are you? Cold, can't see. I turned off the CB. The sound stopped. Silence filled the cab. Just my breathing and the engine idling. I sat there for a long moment. Then I turned the CB back on. The hum started immediately. And the voice, clearer now. Desperate. Don't leave, please. I'm not leaving. Just tell me where you are. Everywhere, nowhere. That didn't help. I looked at the abandoned truck through my windshield. Dark. Silent. Empty. Whoever had been driving it was gone, out in the cold, maybe walking, maybe frozen, maybe dead. I had to make a decision. Keep driving, get to Coldfoot, report the abandoned truck. Let the authorities handle it, or go looking, try to find whoever was calling for help. The voice made the decision for me. Deacon, the station. What station? Emergency North, emergency station. There was one about 20 miles ahead. Small building, heating, supplies, a place for stranded drivers to wait out storms. Maybe that's where they were. Maybe they'd made it that far. I put the rig in gear and started driving. Left the abandoned truck behind. The CB stayed on. The hum continued. Low, steady, and every few minutes the voice. Closer, almost, find me. I drove faster than I should have. The road was icy, but I didn't care. Someone needed help. Someone was counting on me. The miles crawled by. 15, 10, 5. Then I saw it. The emergency station. A small building with a single light above the door. But the light wasn't on. The building was dark, no smoke from the chimney, no tire tracks in the snow. It looked abandoned. I pulled into the lot and parked. Grabbed my flashlight. The CB crackled. Inside, I climbed down, walked to the door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. Inside was pitch black. I shined my light around. One room, a wood stove in the corner, shelves with supplies, a desk, a radio setup, everything covered in dust. No footprints. No sign anyone had been here in months. The CB in my truck crackled. I could hear it through the open door. The voice was louder now. Here, I'm here. I walked back to the truck, picked up the mic. I'm at the station. There's no one here. Look closer. I walked back inside, shined my light more carefully. The dust was thick, undisturbed. But there was something in the corner, near the stove, a shape. I walked closer. It was a sleeping bag, bundled up. I reached down and touched it. It was frozen solid. I pulled back the top and saw a face. Frozen. Gray. Eyes open, mouth slightly parted. A man. Maybe 50, wearing a heavy coat. Ice crystals covered his beard. His skin was waxy, lifeless. I stumbled back. My heart pounded. The CB crackled from my truck. You found me. I ran back to the rig, grabbed the mic. You're dead. You've been dead for months. I know. Then how are you talking to me? Don't know. Just cold, so cold. I stared at the radio. This wasn't possible. But it was happening. A dead man was talking to me through the CB, calling for help he didn't need anymore. Couldn't use anymore. What do you want? I said. Tell them. Tell who? Anyone, I'm here. I sat there for a long time, looking at the emergency station, at the dark building where a man had died alone, frozen, calling for help that never came. I'll tell them, I said finally. The hum stopped. The voice was gone. Just static now. Normal static. I turned off the CB, sat in the silence. Then I picked up my phone, checked for signal. Nothing. Of course not. I'd have to wait until I reached Coldfoot. Report it there. Tell them about the body. About the abandoned truck. About the voice on the radio. I put the rig in gear and drove away. Left the station behind. Left the body behind. The road stretched ahead. Dark and cold and empty. But I kept hearing it. That voice, calling for help. Lost in the static. Lost in the cold. Lost forever. I reached Coldfoot just before dawn. The sky was starting to lighten, deep purple fading to gray. The settlement was small. A truck stop, a few buildings, maybe a dozen people living there year-round. But it was civilization. It was warmth. It was people. I pulled into the truck stop and parked, killed the engine. Sat there for a minute. My hands were shaking. My mind kept replaying what I'd seen, the frozen body, the voice on the radio, the way it had known my name. I climbed down and walked into the building. Inside was warm, too warm. A small convenience store, a restaurant counter, a few tables. 2 other drivers sat drinking coffee. They looked up when I entered, nodded. I nodded back. A man stood behind the counter, older, maybe 60, graying beard, flannel shirt. He looked at me and smiled. "Rough night?" "Yeah," I said. "You could say that. Coffee? Please." He poured me a cup. I wrapped my hands around it. The heat felt good. I took a sip, strong, bitter. Exactly what I needed. "You got a phone I can use?" I asked. "Sure, in the back office. What's wrong?" "Found something on the road. Need to report it." His expression changed. The smile faded. "What kind of something?" "A body, at the emergency station north of here." One of the drivers at the table looked up. "Which station?" "About 20 miles north, mile marker 195. The driver exchanged a glance with his partner. "That station's been closed for 2 years. I stared at him. "What?" "Yeah. Road crews shut it down. Too expensive to maintain. Everyone uses the ones at Coldfoot and Dead Horse now. But I was just there. The door was unlocked. There was a body inside, frozen, in a sleeping bag." The man behind the counter set down the coffee pot. "You saw a body?" "Yes. And there's an abandoned truck at mile marker 175. No driver. The CB was on. Someone was calling for help." The 2 drivers looked at each other again. One of them stood up. He was tall, heavy build, serious face. What did the voice say? "Just kept asking for help. Said they were cold. Said they couldn't find the road." "Did they say a name?" "No, but they knew mine, called me by name." The man's face went pale. "Show me." We walked outside. The cold hit us hard. He followed me to my rig. I opened the door and pointed at the CB. It was off. I turned it on. Static filled the cab. Normal static. No hum. No voice. "It was here," I said. "It was talking to me. All the way from Fairbanks." The man studied the radio. Then he looked at me. "My name's Ryland Eckhart. I work as a mechanic here, and I've heard stories like yours before." "What do you mean?" "Drivers hearing voices on the CB, always on the Dalton, always in winter. Some say it's radio interference, signals bouncing off the mountains. Others say it's something else." "Something else like what?" He hesitated. "People who died up here. Drivers who froze, got stranded, never made it home. Some people think they're still out there, still calling for help." My stomach turned. "That's insane." "Maybe, but it keeps happening every winter. Same reports, same voices." "What about the body at the station?" "I'll call it in. Search and rescue will check it out. But if that station's been closed for 2 years, whoever's there has been dead a long time." I thought about the frozen face, the open eyes, the ice crystals on the beard. "How long?" "Hard to say. Cold preserves things. Could be months, could be years." I finished my coffee. It had gone cold. I threw the cup in a trash can. "I need to keep moving. I've got a delivery in Prudhoe." "You sure? You look shaken up." "I'm fine. Just tired." He nodded. "All right, but be careful. Keep your CB on. If you hear that voice again, don't respond. Just keep driving." "Why?" "Because nothing good comes from talking to the dead." I climbed back into my rig, started the engine. Ryland watched me pull out. I waved. He didn't wave back, just stood there, watching. The road north was empty. The sun was up now, low on the horizon. Everything was white and gold, beautiful, deadly. I kept the CB off, didn't want to hear that voice again. Didn't want to know if it was still calling. But every few miles I looked at the radio, half expecting it to turn on by itself, half expecting to hear that hum, that breathing sound. It stayed off, silent, just the engine and the wind and the road. I drove for 3 hours without stopping. Made good time. The weather held. No snow, no wind, just clear skies and cold, minus 45. The heater struggled but kept the cab warm enough. Around noon I passed the emergency station again. I didn't stop, didn't look, just kept driving. But I saw tire tracks in the snow, fresh ones, leading to the building. Someone had been there, search and rescue probably, checking out my report. I wondered what they'd found, if the body was still there, if it was who I thought it was, the voice on the radio, the man who'd called for help. I'd never know. And maybe that was better. The miles crawled by. The landscape never changed. Just white and rock and sky. Endless. Monotonous. Hypnotic. I had to force myself to stay alert, to keep my eyes on the road. The isolation was getting to me. The silence. The emptiness. Around 3 I saw something ahead. A truck, parked on the shoulder, lights off, same as the one I'd found earlier. My chest tightened. Not again. I slowed down. As I got closer, I could see it was different. Newer model. Blue cab. The engine was running. Exhaust rising from the stack. Someone was inside. I pulled over behind it, grabbed my flashlight, climbed down. Walked to the driver's door, knocked. The door opened. A man looked out. Young, maybe 30, clean-shaven, tired eyes. "You all right?" I asked. "Yeah, just taking a break, long haul." "You shouldn't stop out here. Too cold. Engine could die." "I know. Just needed a minute." I nodded, looked at his CB. It was on, static playing softly. "You hear anything strange on the radio?" He frowned. "Strange how?" "Voices. Calling for help." He shook his head. "No, just static. Why?" "No reason, just checking." He studied me. "You look like you've seen something. Just tired, like you." "Yeah." He closed the door. "Thanks for checking." I walked back to my rig, climbed in, waited until the blue truck pulled out and drove away. Then I followed, kept him in sight. Better to have company, even if we weren't talking. Just knowing someone else was out there helped. We drove together for 50 miles. Then he took an exit, a side road leading to a work camp. He flashed his lights. I flashed back. Then he was gone. I was alone again. The CB stayed off. The road stayed empty. And I kept driving. Toward Prudhoe. Toward the end of the line. Toward whatever was waiting. I made it to Prudhoe Bay just after midnight. 24 hours on the road. I was exhausted. My eyes burned. My back ached. But I'd made it. I unloaded the equipment at the drilling site. Signed the paperwork. Got my payment confirmation. The site manager offered me a bunk for the night. I took it. The quarters were basic. Small room, single bed, shared bathroom down the hall. But it was warm, and it was safe. That was enough. I lay down fully clothed, closed my eyes. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I started to drift off, I heard it. That hum, that breathing sound, and the voice underneath. Help. I sat up, looked around. The room was quiet. No radio, no CB, just me and the walls and the heater ticking in the corner. I got up and walked to the window, looked out. The compound was lit up, bright lights on tall poles. They pushed back the darkness. Beyond the lights, everything was black. Just the Arctic night stretching forever. A movement caught my eye. Someone walking. Between the buildings. Slow, unsteady. I watched. The figure moved into the light. It was a man, wearing a heavy coat. No hat, no gloves. He walked like he was lost. Looking around, confused. I opened the window. The cold rushed in. "Hey," I called. "You all right?" The figure stopped, turned, looked up at my window. I couldn't see his face clearly, too far. But something about him looked wrong. The way he stood, too still, too rigid. "You need help?" I called. He didn't answer, just stood there. Then he turned and walked away, disappeared between the buildings, into the shadows. I closed the window. My breath was shaking. Something wasn't right. I grabbed my jacket and boots, went downstairs. Outside, the compound was quiet. Most of the crew was asleep. A few buildings had lights on. I could hear generators humming, but no people, no movement. I walked between the buildings, looking for the figure I'd seen. The snow was trampled down, hundreds of footprints. I couldn't tell which were fresh, which were his. I walked to the edge of the compound, where the lights ended, looked into the darkness. Nothing. Just black. Cold. Empty. A voice behind me made me jump. "You shouldn't be out here." I turned. A man stood there, older, heavy coat, fur hat, security badge on his chest. "I saw someone walking," I said. "Looked like they needed help." "Where?" "Between the buildings, heading this way." He shook his head. "Nobody's out here, just you and me." I saw him through my window. "You're exhausted, seeing things. Happens up here, the dark, the cold. It messes with your head." I know what I saw. He studied me. What did he look like? Tall, heavy coat, no hat, walking like he was lost. The man's expression changed. "Which building were you in?" "Block C, room 14. Come with me." He led me back to the main office. Inside, he pulled out a file, opened it, showed me photos, old photos, security camera footage, black and white, grainy. "This him?" I looked at the images. A man, tall, heavy coat, walking between buildings. The timestamp said 3 years ago, January 17th, 2021. "Yeah," I said, "that's him." His name was Kemper Whitlock. He was a driver. Hauled equipment up here just like you. One night he went outside, said he needed air. Never came back. They found his body 2 weeks later, 3 miles from camp, frozen solid. They figured he got disoriented, walked the wrong way, couldn't find his way back. My blood went cold. That was 3 years ago, yeah. But I saw him tonight. You're not the first. Every winter, someone reports seeing him, walking between the buildings, looking lost. Search crews go out every time, never find anything. I stared at the photos. Why does he keep appearing? Some people think he's still trying to find his way back, still looking for the lights, for warmth, for help. That's impossible. Maybe. But it keeps happening. Same sightings, same description, same behavior, walking, searching, never finding. I closed the file. My hands were shaking. What do I do? Nothing. Go back to your room, get some rest. In the morning, you'll head south, and you'll forget all about this. I can't forget. You will. Everyone does. The road takes care of that. You'll be too busy staying alive to think about ghosts. I walked back to my room, climbed into bed. This time I slept, deep, dreamless, exhausted. In the morning I loaded up and headed south. Same route, same road, but different. Everything felt different now. The white wasn't beautiful, it was hostile. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was threatening. And the radio. The radio was dangerous. I kept it off for the first 100 miles. Just drove in silence. But the isolation got to me. I needed sound, needed voices, needed to know I wasn't completely alone. I turned on the CB. Channel 19. Static at first. Then a voice. Clear. Normal. Human. Southbound at marker 230. Roads are clear, no ice. Relief flooded through me. Normal traffic. Normal drivers. I keyed the mic. Copy. Thanks for the update. No problem. Stay safe out there. I drove on. The road descended. Out of the mountains. Back toward civilization. The miles passed. I started to relax. Started to think maybe I'd imagined it all. The voice. The body. The figure in the compound. Maybe it was just exhaustion, like the security guard said. The dark and the cold messing with my head. Then the hum started. Low. Steady. Breathing. Coming from the CB. I stared at the radio. My hands tightened on the wheel. Not again. Please, not again. The voice crackled through, faint, distant, but clear enough. Deacon, I grabbed the mic. Leave me alone. Thank you. For what? For stopping for listening. I didn't help you. You were already dead. You tried, that's what matters. The hum faded. The voice was gone. Just static now. Normal static. I turned off the CB, sat in silence. My chest was tight. My eyes burned. But I kept driving. Because that's what you do up here. You keep driving. You keep moving. You don't stop. You don't look back. You just survive. And you try to forget the voices, the ones calling for help. The ones that never stop. The ones that live forever in the static. Lost. Cold, alone. But I knew I'd never forget. The voice would stay with me. Every time I turned on the CB, every time I heard static, I'd remember, and I'd wonder, how many others were out there? How many voices? How many souls trapped in the cold? Still calling, still hoping, still waiting for someone to hear them. I made it back to Fairbanks 3 days later. The return trip was quiet. No voices, no strange sightings, just road and cold and exhaustion. I delivered my reports, filed my paperwork, and tried to forget, but I couldn't. The voice stayed with me. I heard it when I was alone, when I was trying to sleep, when I closed my eyes. That same hum, that same desperate plea. Help me, find me, I'm so cold. I went to the truck stop, sat at the counter, ordered coffee. The place was busy. Drivers coming and going, loading up, heading out, living their lives, moving forward. But I felt stuck, frozen, like I was still out there on the Dalton, still listening to that voice. A man sat down next to me, older, maybe 70, gray beard, weathered face. He ordered coffee and glanced at me. You look like hell, he said. Thanks. Been up north? Yeah. Prudhoe. He nodded. Rough run this time of year. Yeah. He studied me. You hear something up there? I looked at him. What do you mean? On the CB, voices. Happens to a lot of drivers, especially in winter. You've heard them too? Once, 20 years ago. I was hauling fuel to Deadhorse, middle of the night. Heard a voice calling for help. Spent 2 hours trying to find them. Never did. Nearly froze myself looking. Finally gave up, drove on. Voice followed me for 50 miles, then stopped. Never heard it again. What do you think it was? Don't know. Some people say it's radio interference. Others say it's the dead. Drivers who froze, got stranded, never made it home. I don't know what to believe, but I know it was real, and I know it scared me more than anything else on that road. Did you report it? Yeah. Search and rescue checked the area. Found nothing. No tracks, no signs of anyone. Just empty road. Same thing happened to me. I found a body, but the station had been closed for years. Like he'd been there the whole time, waiting. The old man nodded slowly. The cold preserves things. Bodies. Voices. Memories. Up there, time works different. Things don't decay like they should. They just freeze. And wait. For what? For someone to find them. Someone to listen. Someone to care. Most people don't. They drive past, ignore the static, turn off the radio. But some people stop. Some people listen. And those are the ones who hear the voices. I finished my coffee. It was cold. I can't go back up there, not yet. Don't blame you. Take some time. Run southern routes. Let your mind settle. The road will still be there when you're ready. And so will the voices. They're always there. Always waiting. He paid for his coffee and left. I sat there for a while longer, thinking about what he'd said. The voices were always there. Always waiting. How many were there? How many drivers had frozen over the years? How many souls were trapped in that static? I didn't want to know, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. A week later, I got a call from Search and Rescue. They'd investigated my report. Found the body at the emergency station. Identified him through dental records. His name was Pace Dunaway. He'd been a dispatcher. Worked for a freight company in Fairbanks. He'd gone missing 4 years ago during a winter storm. His truck was never found, neither was he. Until now. They asked if I wanted to attend the memorial. I said yes. The service was small. A few people. His family, some co-workers. The chaplain said a few words. Talked about Pace's dedication. His love for the road. His commitment to helping drivers. Then we all stood in silence. After, his sister approached me. She was maybe 50. Dark hair, red eyes from crying. "Thank you," she said, "for finding him, for letting us know. I'm sorry it took so long. It's not your fault. The road takes people. Sometimes it doesn't give them back. But at least now we know. We can finally say goodbye." She handed me a photo. It was Pace, younger, smiling, standing next to a CB radio setup. His dispatcher station. He looked happy, alive. Nothing like the frozen face I'd found. "He loved that radio," she said. "Spent hours on it. Talking to drivers. Helping them stay safe. He always said his voice was out there, on the airwaves, watching over them." My chest tightened. He was calling for help, on the CB. I heard him. She looked at me. "That's impossible." "He died 4 years ago." "I know, but I heard him, his voice, asking for help." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, sad, broken. Maybe that's what he was doing. Still trying to help. Still watching over drivers, even after death. Maybe. She hugged me, thanked me again. Then she left. I stood there holding the photo, looking at Pace's face, wondering if his voice was still out there, still calling, still trying to help. I drove north again 2 months later. Different route, different load. But the same road eventually. The Dalton, the Hall Road, the most dangerous road in America. I kept the CB on, Channel 19, listened to the static, the voices, the normal chatter of drivers checking in, warning about ice, talking about the weather. Normal, human, alive. But every now and then, underneath it all, I heard it. That hum, that breathing sound, and sometimes, very faint, a voice. Thank you. I never responded, just listened, acknowledged, and kept driving. Because up here on this road, you're never truly alone. The voices are always there, in the static, in the cold, in the endless white, calling out, asking for help, watching over you, and sometimes, if you listen closely enough, they say thank you. For stopping, for caring, for not forgetting. Because in the end, that's all any of us want. To be remembered, to be found, to know we mattered, even in death, even in the cold, even in the static. The voices remember, and they wait, and they call, and somewhere out there someone will listen. My name is Thane Corrigan. I'm 47 years old. I've been driving trucks for 23 years. Started young. Never stopped. This road is all I know. The only life I've ever lived. And most days, that's enough. It was mid-March, late winter. The kind of time when the cold starts to ease up just enough to make you think spring might actually come. But it's a lie. Winter always has one more storm, one more freeze, one more test. I was hauling general freight from Whitehorse to Watson Lake. Standard run. 300 miles of the Alaska Highway. Good road. Well maintained. I'd done it 100 times. Could drive it in my sleep. Almost had, a few times. I left Whitehorse at 5 in the morning. Still dark. The temperature was -20. Not terrible. The rig was loaded medium-heavy, mixed cargo, construction supplies, food shipments, mail. The kind of load that keeps small communities running. The first hour was smooth. Clear skies. No wind. The road was empty. Just me and the headlights and the yellow line stretching ahead. I had coffee in a thermos. Country music on the radio. Everything was normal. Around 6, I passed another truck, heading the opposite direction. Big rig, flatbed, loaded with timber. I flashed my lights. He flashed back, a silent greeting. You're not alone. Then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness behind me. I checked my mirrors, watched his taillights fade. Then I noticed the license plate, British Columbia. Number KLM 847. I remember thinking it was a clean plate, easy to read, not covered in dirt or ice like most of them up here. I didn't think much about it, just another truck on the road. I focused forward, kept my speed steady, watched for ice patches. The road climbed into the mountains, gentle curves, nothing dramatic. The sky was starting to lighten, deep blue fading to gray. Around 7, I passed a truck stop. Small place, just a fuel pump and a building with a diner. I wasn't hungry yet, so I kept going. I'd stop later, at the next station, maybe grab breakfast. The road leveled out. A long, straight stretch through a valley. Trees on both sides, snow piled high. Everything was white and still. I cranked up the heater. My fingers were cold. The cab never got truly warm this time of year, just less cold. Around 8, I saw another truck ahead. Moving slow, I caught up and prepared to pass. Flatbed, loaded with timber. Same as the one I'd passed earlier, but this one was heading south like me, not north. I pulled into the passing lane and accelerated. As I came alongside, I glanced at the truck. British Columbia plate. Number KLM 847. I blinked. That couldn't be right. I'd passed that truck 2 hours ago, going the opposite direction. There was no way it could be ahead of me now. No side roads, no places to turn around. The highway was one straight line. I pulled ahead and checked my mirror. Got a clear look at the plate. KLM 847. No mistake. Same truck, same load, same everything. My chest tightened. This didn't make sense. I grabbed my CB mic. Flatbed with BC plate KLM 847. You copy? Static. No response. I tried again. This is Thane on the Alaska Highway. Flatbed heading south. You reading me? Nothing. Just static. I set the mic down. Maybe his CB was off. Or broken. Happened all the time. I kept driving, put some distance between us. Checked my mirror every few minutes. The truck stayed behind me, keeping pace, not getting closer, not falling back, just there. Around 9, I stopped at a rest area. Small pullout with a few parking spots. I needed to check my load, make sure the straps were tight. The cold made them contract. You had to check regularly or you'd lose your cargo. I climbed down and walked around the trailer. Everything looked good. Straps were tight. Cargo was secure. I was about to get back in when I saw the flatbed pull into the rest area. It parked at the far end, maybe 100 feet away. The driver didn't get out, just sat in the cab. I couldn't see him clearly through the windshield. Just a shape, dark against the light. I walked over, wanted to talk. Ask how he'd gotten ahead of me, ask if we'd met before. But as I got closer, something felt wrong. The truck looked old. The paint was faded. Rust spots along the doors. And the tires. They were worn down, nearly bald. I stopped about 20 feet away. Hey, you all right? No response. The driver didn't move, just sat there. Your CB working? I tried calling earlier. Nothing. I took a few more steps. Close enough now to see the license plate clearly. KLM 847, British Columbia. But something was off. The plate looked old. The numbers were faded, like it had been exposed to weather for years. I looked at the trailer. The timber was covered in snow, thick snow, like it had been sitting for days. But that didn't make sense. I'd seen this truck moving both times. It was driving, active. I walked to the driver's door, knocked. You need help? The door opened, not all the way, just a crack, and a smell rolled out. Damp, musty, like mold or rot. I stepped back. You all right in there? A voice answered, low, rough. Keep moving. What? Don't stop, keep moving. I don't understand. Are you... The door slammed shut. The engine started. The truck pulled out of the rest area and back onto the highway. I watched it go. The taillights glowed red in the morning light. Then it was gone. Around a curve, out of sight. I stood there for a long moment. My heart was pounding. My mind racing. What the hell was that? Who was that, and how had that truck gotten ahead of me? I walked back to my rig, climbed in, locked the doors, sat there trying to think. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. I pulled out my phone, checked for signal. 1 bar, weak, but enough. I pulled up a search engine, typed in KLM 847 British Columbia license plate. The results loaded slowly. Then I saw it. A news article from 8 years ago. The headline read, Fatal Crash on Alaska Highway Claims Driver's Life. I clicked the article, read it. My blood went cold. The crash had happened in March 2016. A flatbed hauling timber had gone off the road during a storm. The driver lost control on a curve. The truck went down an embankment. The driver was killed. His name was Virgil Penrose, age 46. The license plate of the truck was listed in the accident report, KLM 847. I stared at the screen. That truck crashed 8 years ago. The driver died. But I'd just seen it, twice, and the driver had spoken to me, told me to keep moving. I set the phone down. My hands were shaking. I started the engine, pulled back onto the highway. I needed to get to Watson Lake, needed to be around people, needed to feel normal again. But nothing felt normal. The road stretched ahead, empty, white. And somewhere out there, that truck was still driving, still hauling timber, still moving forward, even though it shouldn't exist. I drove for another 2 hours without seeing the flatbed. The road wound through the mountains, up and down, curves and straights. I kept checking my mirrors, kept watching for that BC plate. But nothing, just empty road. Around 11, I came to a small settlement. Just a gas station and a few buildings. I needed fuel anyway, so I pulled in. The place looked old, but operational. One pump, a small store, a sign that said, "Birdie's Stop." I filled the tank and went inside. An older woman stood behind the counter, maybe 70, white hair, kind face. She looked up and smiled. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I replied. "Cold one." "Always is this time of year. You heading south?" "Yeah, Watson Lake." She nodded. "Long drive. You want coffee?" "Please." She poured me a cup from a pot on a hot plate. I paid for the fuel and the coffee, stood at the counter warming my hands around the cup. "You run this place alone?" I asked. "Most days. My son helps sometimes, but he's down south right now. Just me and the road." "What's your name?" "Birdie. Birdie Lufkin. Been running this station for 40 years. "That's a long time." "Yeah, seen a lot of drivers come through, a lot of changes. But the road stays the same. Always has. Always will." I took a sip of coffee. It was strong, good. "You ever see anything strange out here?" She looked at me. "Strange how?" "Trucks that shouldn't be on the road. Things that don't make sense." Her expression changed. The smile faded. "You saw something?" "Maybe. I don't know. A flatbed. Same truck I passed hours apart. Different directions. And the license plate. KLM 847. I looked it up. That truck crashed 8 years ago." She set down the rag she'd been using to wipe the counter. "Where did you see it?" "First time was around 6 this morning. Heading north. I was heading south. We passed each other. Then 2 hours later, it was ahead of me. Going the same direction. Same plate. Same load." "Did you talk to the driver?" "Tried to. At a rest area. He told me to keep moving. Then he drove off." She nodded slowly. "That's Virgil." "You know him?" "Knew him. He used to stop here all the time. Good man. Quiet. Polite. Always hauled timber from the mills to the camps. Same route, same load. Then one night in March, he didn't show up. They found his truck 2 days later, down an embankment. He was still in the cab. Frozen. The article said he lost control in a storm. That's what they said. But I never believed it. Virgil knew this road better than anyone. He could drive it blind. Something else happened that night. Something no one talks about. "What do you mean?" She leaned in, lowered her voice. 3 other trucks went missing that same week. Never found. All of them hauling the same route. All of them disappeared without a trace. Search crews looked for months. Nothing, like they just vanished. My stomach turned. "You think they crashed?" "I think something's wrong with this road. Has been for years. Trucks disappear. Drivers see things, and some of them, like Virgil, they keep driving. Keep showing up like they never left. That's impossible." "Maybe. But you saw him, you talked to him. Was that impossible?" I didn't have an answer. I finished the coffee and set the cup down. "What should I do?" "What he told you. Keep moving, don't stop. Don't look too close. Just drive and get where you're going. This road doesn't like it when people ask questions. The road doesn't like it? You heard me. This place is old. Older than the highway. Older than the settlements. And it remembers. Remembers everyone who drives it. Everyone who dies on it. And sometimes it brings them back. Makes them drive forever. Stuck in a loop. Never reaching their destination. Never stopping. I backed away from the counter. I need to go. Be careful out there. And if you see Virgil again, don't stop. Don't talk to him. Just keep moving. I walked out into the cold, climbed into my rig, started the engine. My mind was racing, stuck in a loop, never stopping. Was that what Virgil was doing? Driving the same route forever? Passing other drivers? Trying to warn them? I pulled out of the station and back onto the highway. The road stretched ahead, empty. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something was following me, pacing me, waiting. Around noon, I saw it again, the flatbed. Ahead of me, moving slowly. Same truck, same plate, KLM 847. My hands tightened on the wheel. I should pass it, get ahead, put distance between us. But something told me not to. Told me to stay back. Watch. Wait. I kept my distance. 50 yards. Watched the truck move. It didn't speed up, didn't slow down. Just maintained a steady pace. Like it was on autopilot. Like no one was driving. We drove like that for 20 miles. The road climbed. Steep grades. Tight curves. And then I saw the sign. Sharp curve ahead, 30 mph. I slowed down. The flatbed didn't. It kept the same speed, 45, maybe 50. Too fast for the curve. I watched in horror as the truck approached the turn. It didn't brake, didn't slow, just kept going. Straight, off the road, over the embankment. But there was no sound, no crash, no screeching metal. The truck just disappeared, like it had driven through a curtain. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. I hit the brakes, pulled over, grabbed my flashlight, climbed down, ran to the embankment, looked over the edge. Nothing, no truck, no tire marks, no broken trees. Just snow and rocks and silence. I stood there staring. This was the spot. This was where Virgil had crashed. 8 years ago, and I just watched him do it again, like a recording playing over and over forever. I backed away from the edge. My heart was pounding. My breath came in short gasps. This wasn't real, couldn't be real, but I'd seen it, watched it happen. I got back in my rig, sat there shaking, trying to process, trying to understand. But there was no understanding. Just fear. Deep. Primal. The kind that lives in your bones. I started driving, faster now. I needed to get away from this place, away from this curve, away from whatever kept Virgil trapped here. Replaying his death, over and over, forever. But as I drove, I kept checking my mirrors, kept watching, because I knew he was still out there. Still driving, still heading toward that curve. And tomorrow, or the next day, or the next, some other driver would see him, would watch him disappear, would stand at that embankment and see nothing. The loop never ended. The road never forgot. And Virgil kept driving, kept dying, kept trying to warn people, keep moving, don't stop. Because if you stop, you might not start again. You might become like him, trapped, lost, forever. I reached Watson Lake just after dark. I was exhausted. My nerves were shot. I delivered my load, signed the paperwork, found a motel, checked in, lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I couldn't stop thinking about Virgil, about that truck, about the way it had just disappeared over the embankment, like it was meant to happen, like it was always going to happen, forever. I pulled out my phone, searched for more information, found other articles, other reports. The crash in 2016 wasn't the first. There had been others. Trucks going off at the same curve, the same embankment, going back decades. A flatbed hauling lumber. Driver killed. No explanation. Another timber truck. Same curve, same result. Driver's body never recovered. Same spot, same type of truck. Driver died on impact. The pattern went back 50 years, maybe longer. All of them timber trucks, all of them at the same curve. All of them during winter. Like something about that place called to them, drew them in, made them crash. I set the phone down. My hands were shaking. This was bigger than Virgil, bigger than one ghost truck. This was something else, something that had been killing drivers for half a century. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that truck. Saw it drive off the embankment. Saw it disappear. And I heard Virgil's voice, "Keep moving, don't stop." In the morning, I loaded up for the return trip. Same route, back to Whitehorse. I didn't want to go, didn't want to drive that road again, but I had no choice. This was my job, my route, my life. I left Watson Lake at dawn. The sky was clear. The temperature was -15. The road was empty. I drove slowly, carefully, watching for ice, watching for that flatbed. Around 8, I saw Birdie's station. I pulled in, needed coffee, needed to talk to someone, needed to feel normal. Birdie was there, same spot behind the counter. She looked up when I entered. "You made it back," she said. "Yeah. You see him again?" I nodded. "At the curve. I watched him go over, just like the crash. Then he was gone. No truck, no wreckage, nothing." She poured me coffee. "That's what happens. He replays it. Every time, like he's stuck in that moment. Can't move past it, can't let go. Why? What keeps him there? Guilt, maybe, or fear, or just the road. This place holds on to things, holds on to people, especially the ones who die here. They don't move on, they just stay, driving, crashing, dying, over and over. How do we stop it?" She shook her head. "You don't, you can't. The road decides when to let go, when it's done with someone. Until then, they're trapped. That's not fair. Fair doesn't matter up here. Only survival matters. Only getting where you're going and coming back alive." I drank the coffee. It was cold, bitter. I looked up the crashes. That curve has killed drivers for 50 years. All of them timber trucks. All of them in winter. Why? I don't know. Some places are just cursed, just wrong. And that curve is one of them. Has been since they built the highway. Maybe even before. The native people used to avoid that area, said it was a bad place. A place where spirits gathered, where the dead walked. But no one listened. They built the road anyway. And people started dying. You think it's the spirits? I think it's something. Something old. Something that doesn't like being disturbed. And it takes what it can get. Drivers, trucks, lives, and it keeps them, makes them part of the road, part of the loop. I set the cup down. I need to get going. Be careful. And remember what I said. Keep moving. Don't stop at that curve. Don't look too long. Just drive past and don't look back. I nodded, paid for the coffee, walked back to my rig. The sun was higher now. The day was warming up. Relatively speaking, still -10, but better than -40. I drove on. The road wound through the mountains. I knew the curve was coming. I could feel it, like a weight in the air, a pressure building. The closer I got, the heavier it felt. And then I saw the sign. Sharp curve ahead, 30 mph. My heart started pounding. I slowed down, 30, 25, careful, controlled. The curve appeared, sharp, tight, the embankment on the right, trees below. I kept my eyes on the road. Didn't look over the edge, just focused on the yellow line, the asphalt, the way forward. And then I saw it, in my mirror, the flatbed, behind me, close, too close. How did it get there? I hadn't seen it, hadn't heard it. It had just appeared. The truck was right on my tail. 20 feet, 10, 5. I accelerated, tried to put distance between us, but it kept pace, stayed close. The plate was clear in my mirror. KLM 847. We approached the curve. I braked. The flatbed didn't. It kept coming, faster now, heading straight for me, going to hit me, push me over the edge. I swerved, took the curve wide, tires screaming, trailer swaying. The flatbed shot past me. Took the inside line, too fast, way too fast, and then it was gone, over the embankment, just like before. Disappeared. I pulled over, jumped out, ran to the edge, looked down, nothing, no truck, no crash, just snow and trees and silence. I stood there gasping. My legs were shaking. I'd almost died. That truck had almost pushed me over, almost made me part of the loop, part of the curse, another ghost driver replaying my death forever. I got back in my rig, locked the doors, started the engine, and drove, fast, faster than I should have. But I didn't care. I needed to get away from that curve, away from Virgil, away from whatever haunted that place. I didn't stop until I reached Whitehorse. Drove straight to the terminal, parked, climbed down. My legs barely held me. I walked into the office. The dispatcher looked up. "You all right? You look like hell." "I need a new route. Different highway, different runs. I can't drive the Alaska Highway anymore." He frowned. "What happened?" "Just trust me. I need a change." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll see what I can do." I walked out, went home, took a shower, tried to wash off the fear, the memory, the feeling of that truck behind me, coming closer, trying to take me. But I couldn't wash it away. It stayed with me, in my mind, in my dreams, in the mirror every time I checked it. I'd see that plate, KLM 847, and I'd remember the loop, the curse, the road that never lets go. I didn't drive the Alaska Highway for 6 months. Took southern routes, shorter hauls, less money but safer. I told myself I was just being cautious, taking a break. But I knew the truth. I was scared, terrified, of that road, of that curve, of Virgil. But eventually, work dried up. The southern routes weren't enough. I needed the long hauls, the northern runs, the Alaska Highway. My dispatcher called in September. "I've got a load for you, Whitehorse to Watson Lake, good money. You interested?" I wanted to say no, wanted to tell him to give it to someone else. But I needed the work, needed the money, so I said yes. I left Whitehorse on a clear morning, early autumn. The temperature was mild, just below freezing. The leaves were turning, yellow and gold against the dark evergreens. Beautiful, almost peaceful. I drove carefully, watched the road, watched my mirrors. The first 100 miles were fine, normal. I passed a few trucks, saw some wildlife. Everything was as it should be. But as I approached the curve, I felt it. That same pressure, that same weight. Like the air was thicker, heavier. I slowed down, checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me, nothing ahead. Just empty road. I came around the curve, slow, controlled, and I saw them. 3 trucks, parked on the shoulder. Emergency lights flashing, people standing around. I pulled over, climbed down. A police officer approached. "You see anything? Any trucks lose control?" "No. What happened?" "Witness reported a flatbed going over the embankment, but we can't find anything. No truck, no tracks, nothing." My blood went cold. What did the witness say? Said they saw a flatbed hauling timber, lost control on the curve, went over the edge. But there's nothing down there. We've checked 3 times. What was the plate number? The officer checked his notes. BC plate, KLM 847. I closed my eyes. It's Virgil. What? That truck crashed here 8 years ago. Driver was killed, but he keeps coming back, keeps replaying it. I've seen him multiple times. He's trapped in a loop. The officer stared at me. You serious? Dead serious. Look it up. March 2016. Fatal crash at this curve. Same truck, same plate. It's all in the records. He pulled out his phone. Searched. His expression changed. Jesus, you're right. How did you know? Because I've seen him. Talked to him, watched him crash. Multiple times. He's still out there, still driving, still trying to warn people. He told me to keep moving. Don't stop. I think he was trying to save me, to keep me from becoming like him. The officer looked at the embankment, then back at me. How many people have seen him? I don't know, but I'm not the first. There's a woman named Birdie, runs a gas station about 50 miles south. She knew Virgil. She knows about the curse, about this curve. Ask her. What curse? This place kills drivers. Has been for 50 years. Always at this curve, always timber trucks, always in winter. Something here doesn't want to be disturbed, doesn't want the road, so it takes what it can. And it keeps them. Makes them part of the loop forever. The officer was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll look into it. Thanks for the information. I climbed back in my rig, drove away, left them there, investigating something they'd never understand, never find, because Virgil wasn't there anymore. He was somewhere else on the highway, driving, heading toward another crash, another replay. As I drove, I thought about what the officer had said. A witness saw the crash. That meant someone else knew. Someone else had seen Virgil, and that meant I wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining it. It was real, all of it. I reached Watson Lake without incident, made my delivery, turned around, drove back. As I approached the curve, I slowed down, looked at the embankment, and I saw something. Just for a second. A flash of light, like headlights, down in the trees. I pulled over, got out, walked to the edge, looked down. And there it was, the truck, Virgil's truck, sitting at the bottom of the ravine, rusted, broken, covered in moss and snow. The cab was crushed, the windshield shattered, and inside I could see a shape, slumped over the wheel. Virgil, still there, still frozen, still waiting. But the truck was also on the road, somewhere, driving, moving, alive in a way the wreck couldn't be. 2 versions of the same thing, one dead, one undead, both trapped in the loop. I backed away from the edge, got in my rig, and drove. I knew now what I'd seen, knew what Virgil was. A ghost, a memory, an echo of what happened, playing over and over, forever. But I couldn't just leave it, couldn't just drive away and pretend I hadn't seen the wreck down there. That was Virgil's real body, his real truck, still trapped at the bottom of that ravine after 8 years. No one had found him. No one had recovered him. He was still there, waiting. I drove to the next town, a small place called Junction Creek, population maybe 200. I found the RCMP detachment, walked in. A young officer sat at a desk. He looked up. "Help you? I need to report a vehicle in a ravine on the Alaska Highway, about 20 kilometers north, driver's still inside." He grabbed a notepad. "When did this happen?" 8 years ago." He stopped writing, looked at me. 8 years? March 2016. A flatbed went off the road at the sharp curve. Driver was killed. But the truck was never recovered. It's still down there. I just saw it. He set the pen down. "That's the Penrose crash. We know about it. Search crews looked for weeks, never found the truck. Well, it's there. Bottom of the ravine, east side of the road. You can see it from the embankment if you look close." "You sure about this?" "Dead sure. I've been seeing his truck on the road. The ghost of it. Driving, replaying the crash. And I finally looked down there, really looked. And there it is, the real wreck. Still there, still waiting." The officer studied me for a long moment. "You been drinking?" "No, I'm completely sober. I'm telling you what I saw. Check it out. Bring a crew. You'll find it." He made a note. "All right, I'll pass it along. What's your name?" "Thane Corrigan. I'm a driver. Been hauling freight for 23 years. I know what I saw." "We'll check it out. Thanks for reporting it." I left, got back in my rig. Drove to Birdie's station. I needed to talk to her, needed to tell her what I'd found. She was there, same spot behind the counter. She looked up when I entered, smiled. Then the smile faded. "You look troubled," she said. "I found him, Virgil, the real truck. It's still down there in the ravine." She set down the cup she was holding. "You saw the wreck?" "Yeah, from the embankment. It's been there the whole time, covered in moss and snow. But it's there, and he's still inside. I reported it to the RCMP. They're going to check it out." She nodded slowly. "That's good. He deserves to be found, to be laid to rest properly. Why didn't anyone find it before? They searched for weeks. Sometimes the road hides things, keeps them for itself, until it's ready to let go. Maybe now it's ready. Maybe Virgil's ready." "You think finding the body will stop it? Stop the loop?" "I don't know, maybe. Or maybe it'll just give him peace, let him rest. Either way, it's the right thing to do." I ordered coffee, sat at the counter. "Tell me about him, about Virgil. What was he like?" She poured herself a cup and sat down. "He was a good man, quiet, thoughtful. He'd been driving for 30 years. Started young like you, never married, never settled down. The road was his life, his home. He used to say he couldn't imagine doing anything else." "Did he have family?" "A daughter, from a relationship years ago. He wasn't close to her, regretted that. Talked about it sometimes. Said he'd spent too much time on the road, not enough time being a father. He wanted to fix it, wanted to reach out, but he never got the chance." "What's her name?" Calla Penrose. Last I heard she was living in Prince George, working as a teacher. But that was years ago. She might have moved." I finished my coffee. "I should try to find her, let her know we found him." "That's kind of you. But be careful. She might not want to hear it, might have moved on. 8 years is a long time. She deserves to know, deserves closure." Birdie nodded. "You're right, she does." I left the station, drove south to Prince George. It took me 2 days. When I arrived, I searched for Calla Penrose, found her listed in the local directory. I called. A woman answered. "Hello? Is this Calla Penrose?" "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Thane Corrigan. I'm a truck driver. I knew your father, Virgil." Silence. Then her voice, quieter now. My father's dead. I know. I'm sorry. But I found him, his truck. It's still in the ravine where he crashed. I reported it. The police are going to recover him. Another long silence. How did you find it? They looked for months. I've been seeing him, on the road, driving, his ghost. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And it led me to look. To really look, and I found the wreck. You've been seeing him? Yes, multiple times. His truck, same plate, same load, driving the same route, replaying the crash. I think he's been trying to be found, trying to come home. Her voice broke. He never came home. I waited. Kept hoping maybe they were wrong. Maybe he was alive somewhere, but he never came back. I'm sorry. Why are you calling me? Why now? Because you deserve to know. Your father's going to be found, going to be brought home. And I thought you should hear it from someone who understood. Someone who knew what he was going through out there. Thank you. I appreciate that. Really. There's something else. Bertie told me he regretted not being close to you. That he wanted to fix it. Wanted to reach out. She was quiet for a moment. He sent me a letter, a month before he died. Said he was going to retire. Come down and visit, get to know me, be a real father for once. I wrote back, told him I'd like that. But before he got my letter, he was gone. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. Me too. For a long time I was angry. Angry that he waited so long. Angry that he never tried harder. But I've let that go, or tried to, and now knowing they'll find him, that I can finally say goodbye properly, it helps. It really does. I'm glad. Will you be there, when they recover him? If you want me to be. I do. I'd like to meet you, to thank you in person. I'll be there. We exchanged information. She gave me her number, I gave her mine, and we agreed to meet when the recovery happened. 3 weeks later, I got the call. The RCMP had reached the wreck. They'd brought in a helicopter, a recovery team, and they'd found Virgil, still in the cab, frozen, preserved by the cold. They were bringing him up. I drove to the site. Calla was there. She was maybe 40. Dark hair. Virgil's eyes. She stood with the police, watching the recovery operation. I walked over. She saw me and smiled. Sad, but genuine. You must be Thane. Yeah, you're Calla. Thank you for this. For finding him, for calling me. It was the right thing to do. We stood together, watching the helicopter work. The winch slowly pulling the wreck up the embankment. It took hours. The truck was heavy, rusted, falling apart. But they got it, piece by piece. And finally, they brought up the cab. Virgil was still inside. A tarp covered him. Out of respect. The coroner was there, taking notes, making arrangements. Calla walked over, spoke to him quietly. Then she came back. They're going to take him to Prince George. I can claim the body, have a proper funeral. That's good. Will you come? To the funeral? I hesitated. I didn't really know him. But you saw him, more than I did in the last 10 years of his life. You talked to him, even if it was his ghost. That means something. All right, I'll be there. The funeral was small. 12 people. Old friends from the road, a few relatives, Calla, me. The pastor said a few words about Virgil's life, his dedication to his work, his love of the road, his regrets about being absent. Then we each placed a flower on the casket. Afterward, Calla approached me. Thank you for coming. Of course. I have something for you. She pulled out an envelope. I found this in his things, his last belongings from the truck. It's addressed to me, but I think you should read it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten, dated 2 days before his death. Dear Calla, I know I haven't been a good father. I know I've put the road before you, before everything, and I'm sorry for that, more than you'll ever know. I've been thinking about what I want from life, what really matters, and I keep coming back to you, to the time I missed, the moments I can't get back. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I'm going to retire. This is my last run. After this, I'm coming to see you, coming to be the father I should have been from the start. I know it's late, I know I've missed so much, but I want to try. If you'll let me, I love you. I always have. Even when I was too scared or too proud or too stupid to say it. Your father, Virgil. I folded the letter, handed it back. My throat was tight. He was going to stop, going to come home. I know. That's what makes it so hard. He was finally ready. And then the road took him one last time. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again. Do you think he's at rest now? Now that we've found him? I thought about the loop, about seeing Virgil's truck disappear over the embankment, about the way he'd warned me. Keep moving, don't stop. I don't know, I hope so. Will you tell me if you see him again, on the road? Yeah, I will. She hugged me. Thank you, Thane, for everything. I left the funeral, drove north, back to the highway, back to the road that had taken Virgil, that had kept him for 8 years. I needed to know if finding his body had broken the loop, if he was finally free. I drove that route 6 times over the next 2 months, watched for his truck, watched for that plate. KLM 847, but I never saw it. The road was empty, normal. Just other drivers going about their lives, hauling freight, making deliveries, living. I stopped at Bertie's station, told her about the recovery, about the funeral, about Calla. That's good, she said. Virgil can rest now. Finally. You think the loop is broken? I think he got what he needed, to be found, to be remembered, to have his daughter know he was trying. That's all any of us want in the end. What about the others? The other trucks that disappeared? She shook her head. I don't know. Maybe they're still out there. Maybe they're still trapped. Or maybe finding Virgil will help them too. Maybe it'll show the road that people care, that we don't forget. I paid for my coffee, walked to the door, then stopped. What if I become one of them? What if someday I crash and get trapped like Virgil? Then someone will find you. Someone will remember. Someone will care. That's what we do out here. We look after each other, even after death. I drove on. The road stretched ahead, white and empty and endless. But it didn't feel hostile anymore. Didn't feel cursed. Just felt like road, cold and dangerous and real. But just road. I still drive the Alaska Highway, still make the runs. And every time I pass that curve, I slow down. I look, not for Virgil anymore, but just to remember, to acknowledge what happened there, to honor the drivers who didn't make it home. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in the cab, I think about that letter, about Virgil's last words to his daughter, about how he was ready to change, ready to come home, and how the road took one more run from him, one more trip, one more chance. But I also think about Calla, about how finding him gave her closure, gave her peace, let her say goodbye. And I think maybe that's what Virgil was trying to do all along. Not scare people, not warn them away, just trying to be found, trying to get home, even if it took 8 years. The loop is broken now, I'm sure of it. I've driven that route 100 times since the recovery. Never seen his truck. Never heard his voice. Never felt that pressure at the curve. He's gone, finally, at rest. But the road remembers. It always remembers. Every driver who's crossed it. Every life it's taken, every ghost it's made. And sometimes, on cold winter nights when the wind is howling and the snow is blowing, I think I can hear them. All of them, the voices of the lost. Calling out, trying to be found, trying to be remembered. And I listen. I always listen. Because that's what we do out here. We look after each other. We remember. We care. Even when the road tries to make us forget. Even when the cold tries to erase us. Even when the loop tries to trap us forever. We remember. And that's how we survive. Not by forgetting. Not by ignoring. Not by turning away. But by remembering. By listening. By caring. The road takes a lot. But it can't take that. It can't take our humanity, our compassion, our willingness to stop and help, to search and find, to remember and honor. That's what keeps us human. That's what keeps us alive. That's what breaks the loop. So I keep driving, keep watching, keep listening. And when I see a driver in trouble, I stop. When I hear a call for help, I respond. When I find someone lost, I help them home. Because that's what Virgil would have wanted. That's what Calla needed. That's what the road can't take from us. Our choice to care. Our choice to remember. Our choice to keep moving forward while never forgetting what's behind. The road is long. The cold is deep. The darkness is endless. But we're not alone. We never are. The voices are there. The memories remain. The loops can be broken. We just have to listen, to remember, to care, and to keep driving. Always keep driving. Because the moment we stop, the moment we give up, the moment we forget, that's when the road wins. That's when we become the loop. That's when we become the ghosts. And I'm not ready for that, not yet, maybe not ever. So I drive, I remember, I care, and I hope that when my time comes, when my final run is over, someone will do the same for me. Someone will listen, someone will search, someone will find me, someone will remember. And maybe, just maybe, that'll be enough. To break the loop, to find peace, to finally come home.